DSNY newscast. Details about Stormtrooper Battle Escape ride. Oh, I gotta watch that.
Would you? Shush. Jesus
Hey, Keith.
Hey, Matt.
Is it Tuesday?
It might be Tuesday. I got to check the calendar.
Is it 8 p.m.?
It's 8:01, but yeah, sure.
Then
We'll
it's
go with that.
time for Popped.
Ooh, it's my favorite time of the week.
It's Keith. We're joined
Hey.
by Myles tonight.
Everybody.
I'm Matt. I didn't get the. Why is my stuff all janky?
Why is what all
I'm trying
janky?
to share.
You trying to
trying to
text
share
on
on-
there?
Yeah.
trying to share out the show because I think that everybody should come and watch.
They should.
And if they're not watching, then they don't hear me saying this.
Well, they can listen to it later, you know,
I
because
feel like it's
we
on
are
my
in
timeline.
podcast form now. It is, as long as you approved it. So, but I mean, if they're not watching live, which they should, they can listen to us on podcast form. So they can listen to us on iTunes. They can listen to us on
What about
Google
Stitcher?
Play. Stitcher.
What
Yep.
about YouTube?
Yes. YouTube too. I don't have a fancy link for that one, but
Google Podcast.
Podbean, iTunes, Google Play.
Not
Stitcher.
Google Plus. Not Google Plus.
What about Google Plus?
No. What's
What
Google
about
Plus?
Google Minus?
Google Division. Sorry,
Oh.
that's all we got.
The Google division, one of my favorite 80s bands.
Really? When did they come? When they come out? What was their hit record?
Divide by this.
Okay, I can dig it.
Okay.
SEO will tear us apart.
I forgot what.
Good.
I'll be
Thank you
honest.
for saving that, Myles.
Thank you.
I'll be honest. I probably could have come up with something, but I forgot what the name of the band was that I said.
Google Division.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I went with Joy Division. I thought that's where you were going.
It is-
Maybe I'm
it
wrong,
is,
but
but I just forgot. Like I went blank. Oh, so guys,
Yes, Matthew.
I'm gonna stall while you fiddle.
No, keep. No, just stall.
it-
How's y'all's week's pop culture been?
Oh, are we
Oh.
popped?
Yes.
Well, did I do something?
I don't know. Did you?
I don't remember.
I played a bunch of Mario
I played
Odyssey.
some video games,
yeah.
and I hated them.
Which
we'll
video
get
games
to
did you
that.
play?
I played the new Call of Duty World of War.
Okay.
World War II.
Yeah.
Sorry, World at War was like 5.
Duty. See, Miles, that was funny.
This is gonna tie in a little bit to what the big main thing is, but let me tell you,
Yes.
I think once you get to 40 and you've grown up, literally, 90,
That is what you have
1977,
done.
Like I was born the same year as the Atari VCS. I've literally grown up with the industry. Who are they kidding? They're just packaging the same games. This was the first Call of Duty.
Okay.
There was D-Day. Like it starts out with D-Day.
Well, where else would you start?
Hey, Elena. Thanks for sharing.
Anywhere else. You start anywhere. Somewhere new. We've done D-Day so many times. There's fields. I just started to get like deja vu, and I was like, you know what, I'm down. I'm out. I do like the fact though that they got health packs. And
Okay.
you've got to actually use health packs, so it's a little better than just
I respect
I'm gonna
that.
get in some S and then I'm gonna go hide behind a wall and crouch down and hope that everything. I hated it though.
Love hiding behind walls.
I hated it. I also saw Cars 3.
Okay, yeah, that came out on
Which I
DVD
loved.
this week.
Okay.
I absolutely loved it.
I will at one point in
redeemed-
time watch that movie.
It
Sure.
should have been Cars 2.
Yes, I feel as though with Cars 2 they were thinking to themselves, we need to internationalize this franchise.
Yeah.
We need to take advantage of the fact the first Cars is a huge franchising and merchandising hit, but
It's
did
like
not play
number
great
2.
overseas.
It's like number
Yeah.
2 as far as merchandise. A lot of people don't see that. When Cars 3 was coming out, I think we put something up on Popped about, here's the trailer. And some people were like, why would they spend money on this? And I was like, they make $10 billion off of this. It's like behind Star Wars is the most
Well,
profitable merchandise.
And what's interesting is, like, I mean, the movie ultimately probably only really broke even in terms of box office.
Yeah.
It's under $400 million. It didn't perform all that well, but it was really
Isn't that
just in
crazy
existence to sell
that
toys.
We say under $400 million.
Well, I mean, the
and
movie
that's
probably
like-
cost close to like $175 million to
Sure,
make,
sure.
so like that sort of puts it in
And the marketing.
perspective. But the marketing, the amount of money they spend in terms of licensing, and the fact that it refreshes that audience with
Yeah.
one more set. I think the problem with the Cars movies is that the people who saw Cars when they were kids are now at a point where we're probably not seeing Cars 3,
Probably true.
right? There's not I don't think the same connection to the franchise that Toy Story managed through its
Right.
sequels, but a new generation was exposed to the talking car that can be on their
Sure.
bed sheets, and all of a sudden
Exactly.
that's Disney in the red, and
Go
that's all
buy
this-
them.
or in the black, and it's all this more important.
So, but a good movie though. I
yeah.
liked the it's don't go in expecting like this amazing huge thing. It's a nice small little movie about getting older and trying to. I don't think
So that's why you liked
it. It might be. There might be
Yeah, that makes
about
sense.
and kind of paying homage to like your mentors a little bit and what do you do in the second half. It was really kind of adult themes there.
Yeah.
Like some
it makes
I mean
sense.
not like the cars were getting it on. Like the cars that Keith likes to watch.
I like to watch. No, wait, no. What did you
Cars-
vote me into?
You liked Cars 8, Junk in the Trunk. Which
It
is
was
just
better
gone
than
in some
7.
direction.
It was
What was
Brought the
what was the
franchise-
title of 7?
got my gears going.
This is taking a turn. Okay, I'll take over.
You know why? Because
Um,
Sarah's not here. This
right,
is
this is
why
exactly
when
what
Matt
happens.
thinks he has free reign to get inappropriate.
So
I have free reign all the time.
I was on a plane to Los Angeles, and I finished Stranger Things 2. So I
Ooh,
did that, which I
And
thought was fine.
good.
And then I went to Disneyland, which we were talking about before we went on air. So I did that.
Disneyland.
But then I was also playing Mario Odyssey in various stages.
How many moons have you gotten so far?
I think I'm at like 485 or so.
Yeah,
You're
you're.
about to get one.
We have gotten Sarah and I have combined. Have gotten 500.
Yeah.
And there's
500.
like 900 of some of them.
Well, I think there's actually
400
only
left to
like
go.
800 and something actual moons.
Okay.
The rest
Oh.
you're expected to buy.
Because
Because you can spend 100 coins to buy moons.
I saw that. And I thought that just count. Okay.
You can just keep doing them, so you
I'm
can
with ya.
get to $9.99 without even getting all of them because you just buy them
Okay.
instead.
Yeah.
But that's just something to sort of keep in mind. In that
Well, then
respect.
we've bought a handful of them though. So.
So no,
I
that
gotta
being
check
said,
our-
so have you been uploading your times and scores for things? Because I haven't seen them pop up.
what is that?
For all the races and stuff that you
Okay.
discover, the jump rope, that kind of thing.
This is probably my fault, but I think Sarah's kind of adopted it because of my tinfoil hattiness. I haven't accepted that whole thing because it's like it'll find your location and all this stuff, and I'm like, you stay away from me, Mario Skynet. I don't
It
want your
will
Koopa
not.
Troopas trying to figure out where I live.
It will not find your location.
What would it do if it did?
I have a bunch of Goombas in my yard. You know how tough they are to get out
Oh,
of your
come
yard.
on. That's
I've got
racist.
geese as it is right now.
Oh,
Those
the
things are little
geese.
jerks.
Yeah, they really are.
Can
but
you
no.
imagine how bad Goombas are going to
But see,
be?
you're missing out on the community function of the game, which is that while I was in Los Angeles, I was at a seminar, so I was busy during the day. I would get text messages from my friend where it's just like, check your score on volleyball. And then all of a sudden I would go in and he has defeated my score. And so
Just mean.
going back and forth in that text chat gives you a reason to go back to some of those things, set new times, set barometers for your friends to make. and
To
those
be
types of
fair,
things.
that's what you and I did with Mario Run. And,
It is.
and it was like, yes, I beat Miles on it.
So I think there's that element. It's not a hugely competitive game in that respect, but like I set, we were going back and forth on some stuff. But there's the foot races.
Yeah.
Basically, it's basically testing your speedrunning abilities.
Right.
In the
And then they've
context
got
of
the
game.
Master Cup too.
Yeah.
It's twice.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I set a time in one of those because I devised a whole like triple jump, like multi long jump type deal
Yeah.
to get over a huge hurdle, and like I set that time. And like my friend was just like, "Oh, that's a good time," and then trying to beat it. It adds another element to the replay.
Yeah.
I think it's good to just go to. It's a game that's very replayable.
Right.
Just go back to levels, do a couple moons, kind of
Sure.
get going. But to have a little bit of a motivation to go back to certain areas, to try certain things, to
Right.
commit to that, I feel like that's part of what will keep the game going for me.
That's true.
And keep
I
me
can see that.
active in it compared to say Zelda, where once I got to a certain stage, the need to go back each and every day kind of lessened.
I kind of gave up on Zelda right now because we did get Mario Odyssey.
Yes.
And now I'm probably going to be taking over the TV because Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 came out today.
Right?
So I got that. I also picked up Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 for $25 at Best Buy.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
So I've got two
Those are good
games that'll be
games.
taking over the TV, and Sarah's going to be delegated to go play handheld. So
But yeah. But I
But
mean,
yeah,
I
it's
played
been-
I played a bunch of Mario.
not use the right word on that one. I don't know.
No,
it's
that's fine.
funny.
Okay, I don't word.
Mario Odyssey might be the game that gets me to buy a Switch.
It's worth it.
It's great.
We'll
The
have
other
to
thing
see.
I will say is too. I also I discovered on the plane on the way there that I could not play Mario on the plane.
Why
It
not?
was too active for me. It made me sick. It was too much to have to
Okay.
follow. I was moving around too much. For some reason, it didn't work.
Okay.
But on the plane ride home, I realized that I could play Stardew Valley, which is the farming
Oh.
simulator game, which I think I'm now at like 54 hours into. At this
Jeez.
point, I'm in fall of my third year.
Did
no,
you
fall
get?
of my second year.
Were you able to get Vader yet? I mean, 50 hours. It sounds like you can probably unlock.
We're gonna-
Vader.
Save it for the topic, boys.
When we get
Save
to
it
the
for
topic, I have various things I can talk about in the context of that because I think it offers a very different approach to value, which I think is at the
Yeah.
core of our conversation. So we'll get to that when we get to that.
Okay. Sounds
But that
good.
was my week.
Awesome. Well, yeah, Walter, we do definitely have enough Goombas at work. His girlfriend Jen just finished Kingdom Hearts. New one out next year. That's 2.8, right?
Maybe next year.
Okay. All right.
Kingdom
I
Hearts
haven't
3
followed Kingdom Hearts. Is it
So,
3 or 2.8?
3 is
2.8
supposed
already
to
out,
happen.
right?
2.8 exists.
Okay.
I frankly don't understand what that is. There's various like
Yep.
one half,
It's
birth
like
by
D-
reverse. Like
It's
I don't
like
even know
DLC they've released in disc form.
But Kingdom Hearts
Yeah.
3 is like long delayed. Square Enix is sort of a complete mess at this stage in
Yeah.
terms of when things will actually come out. But the big thing for me is that, and big thing on the internet, it has a Toy Story world in it.
Yeah,
And
oh,
one of the
yeah.
reasons for this is because when the PlayStation was PlayStation 2, I think, was first released, they kept promising like eventually video games would get to Toy Story graphics, that video games would look like Toy Story, and that was so the goal.
That was their big thing.
Yeah.
So the Toy Story world and like PS4 graphics like sells that so much,
Yeah.
and it's sort of an apex, if you will, for that particular discourse around graphics.
It was
So I'm
that. It was
curious.
that, and it was the emotions engine.
Yes, it was.
Nerds.
The emotions engine.
Walter's saying 2.8 is kind of a teaser for 3, so I guess it's kind of their way of like, all right, people, we're coming out with 3. Just give us some time.
I think it's more their way of just having no idea what they're doing.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
That franchise for me, like I might have played more, but like I can't understand half of the games. Like I can't even say the titles. Like
See,
there's that 28 over
Dissidia-
7
Yep.
day. Like I'm out.
I think my big issue with it is I never had a PlayStation 2. So for me,
I did,
I was a
yeah.
Nintendo only gamer up until the 360 PlayStation 3 generation.
Okay.
At which point I started buying all of them.
Gotcha.
I'm on that path forever and ever. You're welcome, gaming industry.
yeah.
But in doing that, I realized like I missed the Kingdom Hearts moment, right? And the PlayStation 3 never really got its Kingdom Hearts,
It didn't,
right?
no.
The franchise kind of skipped it over by nature of that.
Yeah, and see, I was in college when the PlayStation 2 was out, and I'd kind of stuck with like Star Wars and Jack and Daxter, and that's about as far as I got as far as gaming on
Yeah.
that one. I wasn't as big as I
Yeah.
am now into it. So
So I mean, it's sort of this franchise. I'm curious to see how it performs.
yeah, I'll
'Cause
keep
it
you guys
hasn't quite
posted.
had
Maybe
the
I'll write
same
something up on the website.
But yeah, no, but ultimately, because I'd seen that on sale at one point and had thought about it as well, to kind of dive into it and
Yeah.
test it out as a big Disney person. but
Mine as well. I mean,
We'll see.
we're not getting any more Disney Infinity, so
No, we're
you know,
not.
it's gonna be a way to get some Disney
Did you-
gaming.
Did you ever want to play Disney Infinity though, or you just
Nope.
wanted those cool figures?
Yes.
Maybe.
Basically, with Disney Infinity kind of crapping out, I have started taking figures to the office because I have no room here anymore.
Oh,
So, you know, I've got, let's see, Darth Vader, Falcon, and Fantasia Mickey, Sorcerer Mickey. I think is that the
Yeah, I
official
think that
name,
sounds
Sorcerer Mickey?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think like maybe a 7th and 8th of my figures are in my office. The rest are all in my house.
Makes sense. How
I
many do
have
you
a
have
lot.
though? Okay.
I have a lot.
I never bought one.
I
Never
bought-
bought one. I loved them. I really loved the. I
Toys-
thought they were great sculpts.
Yeah.
Never bought them.
Toys R Us had like a massive sale one day when Sarah and I were there, and I think we spent maybe $80 total and got 20 figures and Disney 2 and 3, Infinity 2 and
Yeah.
3.
This is what I basically
and that's
did.
so I was like, crap.
I started through some of them. It's like buy one get 3 free,
Yeah,
and
it
like
seems-
buy one
Yeah,
get 4
that's how they
free.
get ya.
That kind of stuff.
If I had gotten in there and gotten one, if I had gotten a sale like that, without a doubt,
Yeah.
I would have.
That's
I
fair.
would have bought all of them. All of them.
It's what we do.
It's a problem. Although I got a GI Joe Destro pop figure, and I was very very happy with that. I didn't even know he was out.
No.
It was apparently a convention exclusive, which I think that Funko is just slapping convention exclusive on the front of these things,
To
so
make you
that
buy
they can that you can. I think it was like $15 for this one. I think they're just charging $5 for a sticker. So I mean, well, there was only one of them.
Yeah, I was at GameStop today when I was looking for Kingdom.
GameStop is a problem. I don't know what it is with GameStop and Pops. but
They've
they
got
always have-
exclusives. That's why.
They have exactly what I want, because that's where I found the
Magic
Magica.
of
I
Dispel
didn't
above
even
us.
know that was
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, neither did I. They had a good. When I was at GameStop today, they had an 8-bit Dig Dug. They had an 8-bit
You almost sent me.
Shredder.
You
Yeah, because we
almost sent
both
me
work
there.
downtown, so it was like, I might have to go for a little walk today.
because in your picture, and I know you didn't plan this, but there was also like a bunch of Overwatch pops in there, and I was like, I
Yeah.
don't have a lot of them.
I kind of did.
only
I
have
kind of stepped
Diva
out a little bit because I saw some. I saw some Overwatch figures in there.
That's not right.
They also had the kids from Stranger Things in all the Ghostbuster uniforms. I was like, "Oh, you jerks! I really want those. I want to throw them up there with my Ghostbuster figures."
Were there
but
2 Venkmans?
yes, there were. They both had Venkman on their,
Good,
their
good.
outfit.
I'm shocked that you did not buy those.
I almost got a Dustin Stance, but dude, I'm running out of room. I'm gonna have to. I still have.
It's a minor problem. that
I
can
just
be-
got Ninja Turtle Ghostbusters. I don't know if Miles can pull down Michelangelo there, but I got Michelangelo Venkman. Yeah, there we.
No offense.
So
I think these are the dumbest looking things I've ever seen.
they are kind of silly molds, but I mean, okay, 2 of my biggest franchises. All right, yeah, thank you, Miles. 2 of my biggest franchises combined into a figure.
Now, see, I have a question, but I don't know if because obviously the Turtles were announced to be joining something, and I don't know if you have it in the news.
No.
Okay. So it was announced that they were going to be the DLC for, along with, was that
Adam
Katana?
and Enchantress.
Was that Enchantress?
Yeah, it was
No,
Enchantress.
more. Now, I have a question. Do you pick individual turtles, or do you play all 4 at
That's
the same
what
time?
we don't know yet. They,
Because
Are they just skins?
what do
Like
you-
they're just alternate
yeah,
costumes.
They might
basically.
be. They
I would
probably
expect
will.
you would have a single
Turtle.
a
with all the
turtle,
same shells.
but
Yeah.
like whether or not to me, you'd have to adjust weapons for
But-
different movesets for that to make sense. But I don't know how they would play with that. They have various options.
But they have a weird pronounced moment in the trailer. Did you watch the trailer?
Yeah.
Where they're like, we
Mm,
all
fight
fight
as a team.
together.
Yeah.
Like, don't fight, separately.
Because
We all fight together.
Mikey goes, I'll have the sexy magic girl, and Leo comes in and goes, no, we fight as a team. But
And
you
I
know
can't tell if
what?
they're alluding to they're going to be you use them all 4 at the same time.
Maybe.
which
But you
would
know
be
what?
a
They
nice
still looked
dynamic.
better than Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles.
Everything does.
I mean,
I just,
it is.
I'll
what it is.
draw you a turtle that looks better than. I saw a box turtle once. I was like, this is better.
It would be. God, that'd be so much
Worst.
better. I'm trying to think, what else did we do in pop culture this week? I'm trying to think. Thor was last week, right?
Yep.
We
Yeah.
discussed Thor.
We got Justice League coming up.
I will
yeah,
say
we got a big week coming up.
I saw Thor before I left, which is good. But when I was in LA, I also saw a couple of Oscar films
Okay, what'd you
in
say?
limited release. So Lady Bird, Greta
Is it the sequel to
Gerwig's-
Birdman?
It is not.
Lady Bird Johnson.
Spin-off?
So Lady Bird is a coming-of-age story set in the early 2000s. So as someone who came of age in the early 2000s, I can
Should
safely
not
say
Lady Bird Johnson.
no.
This is gonna be sexy.
And then I also saw 3 billboards outside of Ebbings, Missouri,
Okay.
which is
what were on the billboards?
it's a message to the local police, in fact. But no, so it's Martin McDonagh who did In Bruges. I don't know if any of you saw In
Love it.
Bruges at all,
haven't-
but
I
it's a
haven't seen it.
fantastic film. He's I did a bunch. I read a bunch of his plays when I was in college as well. So yeah, so it's basically Frances McDormand raging at the world for an hour and 45 minutes.
Nah, I've heard good
Nice.
things about it.
It's good. So those
it's
are both.
because I feel like we've gotten this far in. Like, I haven't seen nothing that is Oscar
So this is a
worthy.
very weird year, and like we don't have all the time in the world. I could literally talk about this forever, but it's a very open Oscar year. There's no
Yeah.
real clear front runner that represents as sort of the absolute kind of clear choice. I think you have like Spielberg as The Post coming out.
Yep, the
that
paper
obviously,
two, as I call it.
or a Spotlight 2, how we
Yeah,
want to
okay.
call it.
Yeah, it depends on
Yeah.
your age.
Depends on how you want to approach it. Yeah, exactly. But so there's really no clear front runner. So it's really going to come down to how the precursors go down. At this point, they're talking about maybe Get Out getting a Best Picture nomination. It cannot win, I don't think.
No, but I think that.
but at this
I think
point-
it should definitely be in there.
And I
What-
think
what-
it's
up
just
to
a matter
10.
of, it's the kind of year where trying to get a horror film into that category makes it's possible.
And if you're going to get a horror
yes.
film,
Oh, it's that one and
that's
that
the
one
one
only.
you want to get.
A what film?
Horror.
There you go, man.
They also actually
Horror.
they also announced today that for the Golden Globes, Get Out is competing as a comedy.
Yeah,
What?
I get that.
Yep.
You guys didn't pick up on the humor in that?
I
There,
mean,
that
I
thing
mean,
is,
I can get the humor,
There
but
are parts of it that are
it is
funny, but
funny.
like,
yeah.
it's one of those complicated things where
I
the
feel like the
whole
whole
what
half-
qualifies as a comedy thing in the Golden Globes is a long-standing controversy. The
Yeah,
Martian
I get it.
competing
I,
as a
I
comedy.
wouldn't, I wouldn't put it in there.
That's
but
weird.
But
the whole half of the back half of that movie is satire.
and the question is satire enough to justify inclusion in the category when most people think comedy is haha
It's
funny
broad,
and it's
yeah.
not. And so I think it just kind of creates this
I
open
laughed.
question. I certainly laughed at parts of it. Some
So
parts
did
of it
I.
are 100% funny,
Yeah.
but at the same time, the message of it. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I would expect Daniel Kaluuya will get a nomination. I expect to get a screenplay nomination. It could get a directing nomination. Like, it's a very open year, which I think is going to create some good details. Dunkirk is a good point. Travis brings up. We have a guest.
Yeah,
we
we haven't mentioned that yet. We
We have
do
a studio audience.
contributor to the website. Travis Crawford
But
is in the
to the point,
audience
I think to
tonight.
the point about Dunkirk, Dunkirk can read as front-runnery, but because it was so early in the year, because it was sort of a blockbuster success on scale,
I forgot to see
and
it.
because it lacks an acting performance that can anchor it, there are some of the things
That-
in the narrative from its award show perspective that will limit its scale.
I think this is where I'm going to piss Travis off, and he's going to kill me on air. But I didn't really care for Dunkirk. I saw it, and I was like, all right, it
think
was
that's
it was
why I
it was a
didn't see it.
movie. It was just, I don't know. I mean,
It's
what,
a movie.
okay, I just wasn't sure. You suggested it, so I wasn't sure if it was like one of your
no,
favorite
yeah, but
ones
no,
or
I think
anything,
it's a
so.
logical. It's, I mean, it's one of those questions where like, I think ultimately, I think Nolan will get nominated. The technical stuff, there's a lot of. The film was a
None of
tremendous feat.
Does
None
it
of the
open
actors
with D-Day?
though.
But the actors, I don't think there's
It's
an
not a
acting
video game,
performance
Matt.
in
It's not
that
Call of
film
Duty.
that could reasonably get nominated. None of the roles are big enough. There's not enough focus on dialogue. It's not really built for it. And so as a result of that, I think you're going to see other films gain momentum in other categories with wins and critics wins and those types of things. Like, I expect Three Billboards, Frances McDormand and Sam Rockwell, I expect will both get nominated.
Sam Rockwell's the best.
And he is very good in this movie. So again, I think those are the kind of films that really connect to that. So I took advantage of my privilege of being in LA to see these movies when they were
Smart.
only on 4 screens in the entire country.
Smart.
Lady Bird expanded this week and will continue to expand. I expect Three Billboards will expand as well.
Positive that's not about Lady Bird Johnson.
I'm 100% certain.
Okay. Just wanna make sure.
Saoirse Ronan's character just names herself Lady Bird.
I love her.
She's the
I
best.
love her.
She's the
I'm gonna
best.
have to see that because there's one. I'm
No,
a
you
sucker.
should 100%.
I'm a
see it.
sucker for coming of age.
Like, and it's not only just coming
Even
of age
bad
story,
coming of
but it's
age.
also set like they do it. There's like a high school theater program involved with
oh
it.
yeah, man.
So it's like total theater kids and
man.
Sacramento, a really interesting use of location. Lots of fun stuff. Really enjoyed it. Great use of Dave Matthews. Lots of fun stuff.
Somebody's got to use them well.
I would agree, but there's really often I would say no good use of Dave Matthews. This is a good use of Dave Matthews.
Good. Okay. Well, if you want to see a good use of Dave Matthews, I always thought like if you were really cold, say that you found yourself somewhere like a tundra, and all you've got is Dave Matthews. So you set him on fire. That's a good use for Dave Matthews, and or his CDs, either one. But-
You know the worst place to use Dave Matthews?
On the radio.
I was going to say Chicago, but yeah, the radio works too.
I think well, it's one of those things where it's like I was also really entertained by this fact, and this is something people can watch out for. There are references to Doritos in both of those movies. And they're completely random, non sequitur. No point do they like actively eat Doritos.
Product
but
placement?
I don't think so, but I like the idea of Doritos infiltrating this year's Oscar contenders. That one by one, they will just subtly reference Doritos to associate Doritos with prestige cinema.
Maybe they're trying to win that Doritos like crash the Super Bowl contest.
I don't know.
Like, hey, you can't get any better
look,
than this.
I will say, listening
No,
to
that
Tracy,
dog was really good in the commercial.
Tracy Letts, a Pulitzer-winning playwright and actor, is the one who references Doritos and Lady Bird, and just hearing him say the word Doritos. Just brought me great joy.
He enunciates
He
it like
enunciates it very Doritos.
Doritos.
It's very pointed.
Do you know where Doritos got their start?
No,
Disneyland.
that makes sense.
Frito-Lay, because when Disneyland first opened, I just wanted to see if Keith was reaching for the Disney alarm.
Nope. Dang it. Sorry. Our Greg called in early and I missed it. So
Frito had a little cart where they would
Oh,
sell basically what would become Doritos.
I don't really like Doritos, so
What about Cool Ranch?
I will eat Doritos. I want to make very clear, like I'm not like how dare Doritos exist. Because I am like that with some foods. Don't get me
Sure.
wrong, but Doritos like it's fine. I'm just not quite all there for it.
hey, Greg, do you eat Doritos?
Absolutely, but nacho cheese only. Nothing outside of the original.
No Cool Ranch.
No, Cool Ranch is disgusting.
Oh, wow.
Cool Ranch is
Strong.
awesome.
Greg coming in strong.
That's a strong take.
It is. So
The bag is blue.
no Cool Ranch, huh?
I respect that. I do. Got to have a
Just make-
code, right?
What about Warm Ranch?
Absolutely.
Ew, I feel like warm
Yeah, I
ranch
don't
is
like-
something you don't want to have.
I don't like any form of ranch at all.
Hmm.
It's un-American.
Well, Greg, since we got you here, let's play you a little intro.
Oh, please do.
Such a great video of your shop.
Somebody's running too much on the computer.
Yeah, entirely too much on the computer. Fix this. Yeah, entirely too much.
All of those look like
We still need to do the comics with Greg. Comics with Greg. We still need
Comics
to
with Greg.
we still need to reshoot that, re-record that music.
I
So
feel like you should reshoot the intro with just me in the office crying. Real tears.
I mean, we can cut that in.
Yeah, we
we
can
want
do
to get
that.
together this weekend. We'll come in there and record you
Absolutely.
just crying at your desk. So John, listener John actually chimed in. He said, "Cool Ranch is just called American flavor in Europe."
See, that's it.
But that suggests that that ranch is inherently American.
I would think so, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no ranch anywhere else.
So,
Kind of sad.
Greg, what do we got in comics this week, man? I got no segue into from going from that to comics.
So they're not Doritos comics. Doritos should make comics.
They should. And they
Doritos
should.
should
Can we
make
just
comics.
talk, I feel like we should just talk about Doritos.
I mean, we
We
can.
could get into the whole munchies part of
mean,
the Doritos.
What
thing,
issue of
which
Doritos
is
is coming out
awesome.
this week?
Hey, Northrop Grumman could try to come up with a comic. So I mean, don't put it past Doritos.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah, they were working with Marvel to. Greg, did you hear about this? Northrop Grumman and Marvel
Yeah.
were working together to put a comic out.
I know a bunch of private companies do Marvel type stuff, and they'll do a comic for you if you have enough money, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like defense contractor was a little bit of a pull. That was maybe not quite where they should have gone with that.
So awkward.
It very
I'm-
quickly blew up online because why would you ever do that? But yes.
Yes, I don't know why. So
So yes, what is new in comics this week other than Doritos?
Comics this week, yes. Tomorrow's Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
new comic book day, the best day of the week.
it
To be
is.
honest.
Well, mine after Tuesday, of
Um,
course, because it popped. I mean,
After
so
Pop, yeah. I thought we
He
can-
doesn't make as
I
much
think
money
we
on
can-
Pop Day.
it's true.
Whose fault is that?
There's some good stuff tomorrow. The Batman Laughs book out tomorrow, which is obviously a Joker themed book. It's a one shot, ties into metal, and I actually read this one tonight before I left, and it was spectacular. So
Oh.
Batman Laughs tomorrow from DC and the
Okay.
metal stuff, which everyone seems to really be loving.
I'm liking that Batman White Knight. Have you
The
been
White
reading?
Knight series is amazing. It's
Yeah,
from
I love it.
Sean Murphy, who did Punk Rock Jesus. I don't know if anyone read that, but that was a really good book. He wrote and drew Punk Rock Jesus. He's also writing and drawing this Batman series, The Man Who Laughs. It's an 8-issue series, and the first 2 issues have been just really mind-blowing. It's probably some of the best Batman stuff I've read in years.
Nice.
Check it out.
Yeah, it's worth a read.
Yeah,
Yeah, but you're not coming
no,
back.
White Knight's tremendous book.
Yeah.
They know what they did.
I've got White Knight here. You can buy the
The
2
thing
issues I've got. Read them before you leave.
I don't read anything with white in the title.
So
This is
prejudiced.
the worst guy ever.
he,
This
really
day, I
is.
swear.
He really is.
That's why I won't eat ranch. White.
Anyways,
The comic I'm kind of hesitantly excited for tomorrow is the new Punisher book. There's a Punisher series that happens to start this weekend, coincidentally, which looks
Yes.
terrific from the trailer anyway. But this Punisher comic is actually the Punisher in the War Machine armor. So if you thought he was a murdering psychopath before, now
They
he's
gave him the War
technologically
Machine
enhanced
armor?
to kill even more people.
how did he get the War Machine armor? Do we know?
You know, that's a good question. People who have read the previous Punisher
Okay.
run might know, but I haven't been. I'm not current on this run.
Okay, that's I wasn't
But
sure if
hopefully,
it was just if it was discussed in previous issues leading up to this and other series, and then or just all of a sudden this run has him with the War Machine outfit, and we just got to figure it out, and it's part of the story. So just curious, wasn't sure if there needed to be any background.
It's very possible that they've explained it. I don't know, but I'm sure they'll give you a good primer tomorrow in the first issue of this story arc. So it looks cool.
Sounds good to
And
me.
I'm really excited for the show too. So I'm kind of hyped on Punisher right
Yeah,
now.
so they're planning on doing. Other people want me to do stuff this weekend. I'm like, step off.
We'll talk about that. Greg, are you going to the room on Saturday?
Am I going to what on Saturday?
The Room over at the Narrow.
Oh, yeah. I was going to try to definitely check that out in the evening. It's a local comic shop day this Saturday, so we'll be hopefully busy for the majority of the day, but we'll be there. Hopefully have time to go there Saturday after work.
Okay,
I have a
cool.
feeling
Well,
it's gonna sell out.
let's talk about a local comic shop day at the end of the call here. So, what else we got? What other
Yeah.
comics have we got coming out tomorrow?
One of the best first issues I've read in a while was Maestro's #1. It was from Steve Scroce, who did the art on the Brian Vaughan book We Stand on Guard. He also did the storyboards for the Matrix trilogy, and he's kind of a big deal. His art's amazing, and the first issue of Maestro's was outstanding. The second issue comes out tomorrow. If you missed the first one, you should definitely pick it up. It's worth your time if you like kind of zany, weird, but really well drawn and well written comics. And that's from Image. It's called Maestro's. It's terrific. So #2 tomorrow.
Nice.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it's a great book. And then local comic shop day is Saturday.
Yeah, what do you guys got going on for that?
So the local comic shop day, all the publishers do special books that are just for the day. It's very much a collector centric event. It's for people who like to get limited edition stuff. It's very similar to Record Store Day, but for comics. We'll have all the offerings from all the publishers, and we'll also have a sale. We'll have some Dollar Men comics out for people and some giveaways. So if you're not doing anything Saturday, come by, hang out.
Can I get any chromium covers?
There might be a chromium cover or two in the dollar box for you, buddy. That's probably in your budget.
That's where they all ended up, huh?
Hey, Matt, the 90s called. They want their comics back.
They do. I feel like I don't know. I feel like Matt wakes up every morning and just sheds a tear for the comics of the 90s.
I go by.
They're never coming back.
I go buy my long box that has just 50 copies of Ninjak.
Yeah.
And then I pet it. I give it a nice pet, and then I go off to work.
There's a new Ninjak comic tomorrow, actually.
There's no
Coincidentally,
way.
you should come by and get it.
No way. It's a trap.
Greg's just trying to get you back in the shop. He misses you.
I do need to go. I need to get back into that.
Well,
yeah, because he knows every time I come in, I'm gonna drop at least a C note.
Well, that's what I drop every
Please.
week, and
Yeah.
I'm in there every week. That's what I'm just telling you now. Your Christmas present this year from me is going to be a gift card to Local Heroes. I'm just telling you now.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
That's what I got you.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
You know what's great is I take the money that you guys spend on gift certificates and I hand them straight over to my landlord. So, it's a circle of life.
Everyone wins.
Hey, Greg, when's
Yeah.
your lease up? Because I got a place that you might be able to rent for coming up in August. I heard the landlord's a lot better.
Was that right?
Yeah.
I'd take anything.
Yeah, it's not in Ghent, so I can't blame you
No.
because you're like right down the street from the shop. So, in fact, where can they find this Local Heroes that we speak of?
It's a real place. It's in Norfolk, Virginia, 1905 Colonial Avenue, right next to Kogan's Pizza. And if you're not local to Norfolk, you can find a comic shop close to you at comicshoplocator.com. So
Yeah.
we're everywhere.
Awesome.
I just want to point out that we have never, ever denied the existence of Local Heroes.
Well, it's because it's right next to Kogan's, and we love us some Kogan's.
And Local Heroes.
And Local Heroes too. Well, yeah, I mean
okay,
I'm there every
Kevin,
week. I don't
not as
need
much.
to confirm and reaffirm my dedication to Local Heroes. I'm there every week.
But at least I'm not cheating on you.
Keith is
It's true.
Keith is he has a lifetime status. It's sworn allegiance, and Matt, I don't know.
I don't want anybody thinking I'm over at like Trilogy or something lame.
What's
do.
that?
I mean, as long as
point.
you're buying something, I don't care where you get it from.
Yeah.
No,
But
I
you know
only buy
what I
from
can
Local
guarantee
Heroes.
you? Local Heroes is the cleanest shop in this 7 cities.
Yeah, no, nothing will fall on you. I was at some comic book shop and just an entire stack of Archie Ninja Turtles just fell on me. You don't want to be covered in that.
I mean, there's some good issues in that. So awesome, Greg. Well, I will see you tomorrow, and maybe I'll stop back in on Saturday. See what kind of local comic shop day exclusive you guys have got for the event. So
Please do. Thanks, guys.
Awesome, man.
Thanks,
We'll
Greg.
Bye,
see you later, man.
Have a good week.
You too. Bye.
I miss Greg already.
He just left.
I want to be very clear on something. Is the Archie Ninja Turtles thing an actual thing?
Yes. The Archie.
I mean, I presumed it was because you combine two franchises more than willing to cross over beyond all
When
logic.
the Archie Comics put out the the cartoon version of the Ninja Turtles.
All right.
yeah.
Okay. You remember how before the show Matt went all. Remember how before the show Matt went all nerdy and on Disney. Let me get a little comfortable here.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step into
Okay.
into Keith's fandom.
Because I'm aware of the Turtles multiverse because I've seen the movie where all the different turtles converge. So I'm a little bit.
Okay. Turtles Forever.
Yeah.
Came out in late 2000s.
Yep.
So
I watched that in a grad seminar, by the way.
Keith,
Really? Okay.
Keith, before the show, Myles said he was in Disney in like 95, 96. And I was like, oh, was that the one? Was that the year when they had the cake castle? So
It was.
Yeah. Your Disney,
He had it.
my Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
So, it's
Okay,
good.
so yes.
Okay, so
You
Turtles
can get
started off.
nerdy.
Turtles started off with Mirage in 1984. They did that for 62 issues, I believe. I'm trying to think. Yeah, because they did the big 50th, and then it was 62 issues, and then they did a volume 2, which was still with Mirage, but it was a short 12 or 13 issue run in color because the first volume was in black and white. And during the volume 1, I forgot to mention they also did like a 7-issue Tales of the TMNT. That'll come in later.
Got it.
And then let's see. I'm trying to think. And then Archie, he just put. You can join in on this conversation, Matthew.
Then
I'm not trying to
Archie,
exclude everybody.
obviously.
Archie just got into the comics when the series came out in 80. Cartoon series, I should
Cartoon
say,
series, yeah.
came out in 87, and their first 5 issues were basically a rehash of the first few episodes of the cartoon series. And then eventually it diverted off into its own storyline, and they came up with some cool characters, some cool arcs.
Stool.
Yeah, yeah, there was some actual stool.
It was a sewer.
No, well, yeah, of course, that's what you got in the sewer. And so that ran for 102 or 3 issues. And during that time, I guess the main Mirage kind of Turtles, they got shipped out to Image, and Image did a 20-some issue run, which was considered volume 3. Let's see, what am I missing in the comics? So that takes us up to about 2001. Archie's been done. Image is finished up. 2001 Mirage. At this point, Kevin Eastman has sold his share, so Peter Laird is still running the Turtles. And he has Volume 4 start up, where they're older, everyone's kind of moved on. They're,
All gritty.
yeah, they're
It was
just
a
kinda
gritty
like,
era. Things became gritty in that time.
Yeah.
It did. It
beards.
definitely did. And they were just like, what are we doing with our lives? We're doing the same crap, blah, blah, blah. And there's some adventures with there that got kind of cool.
They opened a pizza place, but it was like pizza but craft beer. So in Brooklyn.
Artisan
See,
pizza.
look, you wouldn't have been able to make that. You would have been able to make that joke if you had put your mic and put your mic back up. You
Always
broke
have your mic up.
You broke Myles.
Continue.
And then 2003, that the 4 Kids cartoon came out, which was really good. Probably one of my favorites. Actually, the more I'm thinking about
You're missing one.
what's that?
Next-
Oh, the Last Mutation. I didn't get into the movies and then the subsequent Last Mutation. Next
But I feel like
Next
that was-
Mutation.
Yeah, next
Yeah, Next
mutation. That's
Mutation.
what I
And
said.
the
Then
Power
you said
Rangers.
Last mutation.
I don't. It's.
There was a girl. There was a girl
There
turtle.
was a girl turtle, which they've made reference to in the most recent cartoon.
Where'd she go?
Away, thank God. Oh, far, far away.
Probably Cleveland.
And so let's see. That cartoon had 4 seasons of the regular stuff. Then they did Flash Forward for 2. Then they went back to the sewers because of the 2007 movie. And then they tried to, like you mentioned, they did try to do the Turtles Forever. And apparently because of, they brought the old cartoon Turtles back into that and
Yes.
mashed them up with the new ones. And I think from what I've read, I don't know how true it is, but they had some sort of union issue, so they couldn't get the old voice actors back in. I
That
don't
would make sense.
why. I'm kind of curious about that, actually. So
I'm sure. I mean, so it might have been an issue of the voiceover concerns, but if you're following the video game strike at the moment, that's
Okay.
affected a bunch of things. So it could have been a SAG strike. It could have been any type of union action. It could have been the people they were using. Who knows?
okay, because the reason I asked that is because flash forward, 8 years, and the what is considered the 2012 Turtles series, which was like the CGI stuff that's been out for the past 5 years. They just finished it up. Really good, actually, surprisingly. They had 2 or 3. Actually, let me take that back. This last one was 3 episodes, and then they had 1 or 2 other episodes where they crossed. So like 5 or 6 episodes where they crossed over with the old Ninja Turtles, and they actually got the old voice actors back.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was because the 2003 cartoon was with 4 kids, and now the new ones with Nickelodeon, they had some special privileges that the other ones didn't.
Well, it's
I don't know.
Probably timing and contracts, and
It might have been.
there may have been
Money.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what it
Well,
comes out to.
for those who aren't watching, Miles is making the hand motion that says money because you
finger
remember
thing
Miles
means
we're
the
in
taxes.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's like mouthing something on the radio. They can't tell what you're saying. Exactly. Thank
I'm
you,
content
Matt.
with my choice. Thank you very much.
No, I'm just giving you a
I
hard
made
time.
reference to it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So yeah, that's I skipped a lot of crap on the Turtles.
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
but that-
no,
that-
thank God.
yeah.
So that's
And now IDW has the comics, and it's probably the best
Yeah.
comics because it's pulling from
Right.
the cartoon, it's pulling from the Archie comics, surprisingly enough.
yeah.
It's pulling from all sorts of stuff, and it's
What
actually a really good run. I'm enjoying it. So, and they've crossed over with Batman and Ghostbusters, and now Injustice, which
I
I
feel-
think the Batman comics actually had a hand in them coming into Injustice too. So,
I think yeah, sort of there's the logic that they are by nature. You know, I think
Amphibian
there
or
are
reptiles.
definitely generations of people who would not associate turtles with comics.
I can see
weird,
that.
right?
Yeah, that is weird.
Like,
but
I mean,
yeah.
even for me, like in my purpose, like I don't think I ever thought of it as a comics franchise.
Makes sense.
Given that I grew up with the movies, right, and the live action films.
No, I can see that
right?
though.
And
yeah.
didn't really know the backstory and wasn't a comics reader.
Right.
And I remember like when we talked about it in that grad class and we talked about Turtles Forever, it's just like I kind of knew. Like I kind of knew that's where it came from.
Right.
But to see it called attention to so much in that case, I think really kind of brought that back.
Yeah, and that was kind of the cool thing about the Turtles Forever movie that you watched, and some of the more recent tie-ins with the old cartoon and stuff. They actually bring in the old gritty comic characters as part of the stuff, and I thought they handled them really
I think
well.
it's a smart way of calling attention to how the Turtles have been a very malleable franchise in terms of different demos, like so that basically became more family friendly as the merchandising opportunities and as the film
Right.
came out and things kind of merged, and then now it's a kids show, and yet at the same time it has these other origins and a legacy fan base of Keiths and Keith-like people.
Basically,
Who were the turtles created to parody?
Daredevil.
Okay.
Stick, Splinter, the radioactive ooze, yeah, that stuff.
Just saying if there's anything we can stump you with.
Yeah.
The hand, the foot, that kind of thing. Yeah.
That does. I will say I do appreciate that for people who aren't familiar with the comics at all. If they watch Daredevil on Netflix, they're like, "That sounds like Ninja Turtles."
There were
we've
probably a
come
bunch
full
of people that
circle.
have, yeah, there have probably been a bunch of people that have been like, that's weird.
Specifically, who's run on Daredevil?
I'm not gonna, I don't know.
Frank Miller.
Okay, there you go. Oh, see, Travis had it. Frank Miller. Yep.
I mean, that seems logical to me.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That's a person I'm familiar with. so.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's been quite the. That was a wonderful 10-minute detour.
So did you teach that class, or was that a class you took?
That was a class I took. We were
Okay.
talking about franchising.
If you ever talk about turtles, just let me know. I'll take the day off work. I'll come in. You
I
know,
gathered that might be the case. Yeah, no, that was
You
a.
want me anybody talking about the Disney parks?
That was yeah.
Seriously.
That actually that might be more likely to happen. But
Oh God, Matt teaching a class.
I didn't say I was going to let him teach anything.
I don't want to teach you.
But no, so but
Like,
it's definitely that was a
We're
class
gonna
on.
start with Flash Mountain.
That was a class on just sort of franchising logics in these different areas.
Oh, look,
so-
everybody played at home.
What do you mean everybody play? Yeah, no.
Well,
John
played
did
at
all.
home.
Yeah, John to mimic Daredevil, and he said that's why all the turtles were red. And yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, originally they were black and white, and then the penguin is, when they collected in
The-
trades, that's
the
when they colored them
trades.
and did it all red.
The trades.
So, which is why that first
Favorite turtle? What's your favorite turtle story?
favorite turtle story.
Yeah, across any media.
Oh, okay, not like my own experience with the turtles, just a story.
There was one time I was in a Toys
obviously-
R Us.
Obviously,
well, that sounds like-
my favorite turtle story was when I was at Walt Disney World when I was, I guess,
In 1996?
4.
Oh.
No, I would have been 4, and I got my photo taken with April.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They used to be at the
Actually,
studios.
that as far as
Turtle
where I
Man
was
Band.
originally taking your question, my favorite turtle story is the fact that I've gotten to meet Kevin Eastman and Judith Hogue, and Judith Hogue was awesome.
She made out with you a little bit, right?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, Sarah proved it, so it
No,
was
it's
like
fine.
her table
gotta
was
have-
her table was kind of quiet anyway. So
Yeah,
I'm like,
sure.
let's
You
go
guys
behind
just
the
got on top
curtain.
of it, and
I mean, I don't know if it went that far. Jeez.
yeah, what'd she sign?
Sarah, this is what happens when
my
you leave.
script of the first Turtles movie.
Nice.
No,
It's very classy.
she had that, and I didn't buy it. I'm kicking
I
myself.
don't even want to hear it.
I'm kicking
I'm
myself
shocked
for
that
it.
you don't have that and you don't have a copy of number 1.
I do have a copy of number 1. It's like third printing though.
It doesn't count. You know that.
Yeah, because I'm gonna drop a few grand on a comic issue.
I have no problem with it.
I
I
have
will one day buy a. I'm going to buy a giant size X-Men number 1.
Fair
I just
enough.
haven't. I should have bought it back in the '90s. What was I doing? I didn't have any money.
Buying
back
chrome
then.
covers. That's what
I was
you're
gonna
doing.
say,
Gotta get all those
They're gonna be
issues
worth
of
a
Harbinger
lot.
number 1.
It'll be worth a lot someday. To that dollar bin over at local
Actually,
heroes.
less.
They've lost value.
Well,
are
I mean,
we talking about news next?
We can.
What I don't know what we're doing
I
exactly.
know.
We're just kind of talking.
He got into the turtles. I didn't think he was gonna get to news.
I just wanted to
We
say-
can do news. You guys want to do news?
It seems like the logical thing
Well,
to do.
real quick.
I think we're gonna need an hour for our.
Yeah, we are. Okay, before we get the news, real quick, just so everyone knows, we mentioned it with Greg, but The Room is playing at the Narrow.
Yep.
And we are going.
Come watch with us.
Travis, are you going? Yep. All right, Travis is going.
All right.
Miles?
I don't think so. I've seen The
What are
Room
you
twice,
doing?
and I will actively say that the second time it made me want to hurt myself. Not so much because the movie is bad, but because something about the way crowds react to that film just made me uncomfortable.
no. Yeah, okay, then yeah, avoid the
I'm
Narrow.
not gonna.
Yeah.
And
I'm
it's
not-
like
Am I gonna be able to
you
handle it?
want to experience it once, 100%. Doing it the first
Okay.
time, I felt like I gained something and a perspective on why the film is as infamous it is. A second time, it's like I saw behind the curtain,
okay.
and it was just too. There's an ugliness to it I don't care for.
I don't like
Fair
that
enough.
because I legitimately think it's one of the most amazing movies ever made.
So you,
I have
think,
a genuine appreciation for it.
So I will say, like,
Just
I
as
think
a filmmaker, I could see how. I can't see how
Even-
anything came out of that.
even the people who were annoying me and frustrating me, they seemed to love it, and people loved it, and people threw spoons, and it was great, and that's all fine. But I found, for me, just some of the choices people made in trying to get a laugh, to my mind, were more
are they
going to
be yelling things?
Oh yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about, honestly.
Which, to be fair, is
Because
part of the
we've
experience.
if you've been listening to the past few episodes, when Sarah and I saw Princess Bride, they did it, and we were super
Well,
annoyed.
that's not okay.
When
Okay?
look,
So-
look how serious he got.
There's something very important here. So it's I when I went to the room that's part of the contract. When you
Okay.
enter that space, people are
Okay.
going to
You know
yell
what?
things.
I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna
There are
have fun.
things that people will respond
Yeah.
to on the screen when it comes up. There's lines of dialogue people will respond to. That's a big part of it.
I'll deal.
Okay, I'm
But
okay with that.
The issue at the core of it is that then it's like you go see other movies at the location, and people think that's what you do for all
Now
movies.
we have a story about that. I don't think we told it on air.
Do you want to? I thought we
It's-
did. Evil Dead.
It's one of my favorite things that's ever happened. We go in to see Evil Dead 2, and
Yeah.
I'll make it quick just in case.
No,
I think we've covered it. I think you're right. I think we have covered-
Travis was there with
Travis
us.
was there with us.
Yeah.
We go in.
that where we
it's
met
where
Travis?
We go in to see.
You go to
Evil
these
Dead
movies
2.
and meet us. You can come up on the show.
There is a guy who has basically written down responses to yell at the
Horrible
screen.
responses.
So he keeps yelling at various points, these various cues. What was the one that
Axe body spray.
yeah. So somebody gets Axe and he's like, and that's how Axe body spray was invented. And literally is looking around so somebody just eventually he does that line and somebody from the back just goes, "Shut the F up."
Was it Chris? Was it Chris?
I don't
think it was. It sounded like Chris.
denies it.
Sounded like
But
Chris.
somebody may have yelled that and then threatened the poor
Yeah.
kid. And he was you could tell he might have been on the spectrum a little bit.
Okay.
And this was something that he
Who isn't these days? Let's be
Who
honest.
isn't? We all are.
I mean, it's one of those cases where I think you can misread that, where it's you think it's a classic movie screening, that everybody there is on the same page. So it's I went and saw Die Hard a few weeks after seeing The Room, and people wanted to do it to Die Hard.
Don't you
and
do
I'm
it to
just
Die Hard.
Yeah, see, even Travis is
no,
saying, "Don't do it to
no,
Die Hard."
Don't you do it
that's
to Die
a
Hard.
line that we cross and deal with. And so I feel like in the case of The Room, you go in knowing that's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's for me just that at a certain point you just try to find basically mean things to say about these people. and I'm just like, it just
Yeah, that's
it
nasty.
just doesn't play for me.
You just don't do it in Die Hard. You don't do it in. I like there's certain movies, obviously,
Yeah.
like Rocky Horror, The Room,
Yeah.
Last Temptation of Christ. There's just some of these movies where you just yell things at the screen.
Dr. Horrible sing-along blog.
Yeah.
So I'm open to that in terms of an audience experience, and The Room is designed that way. I think it's just that for me, I
I'd be so
experienced it.
annoyed.
I experienced it once, and then the second time, it just sort of seemed like people were trying to see how crude they could be, and that race never really appealed to me.
Well,
Yeah.
Sarah and I,
I'm
Sarah
very
and
curious
I-
to hear your report.
Yeah, Sarah and
is
I
where
have
I'm at
not
with that.
seen it.
No.
So, you know,
Do you know
Matt,
what it's about?
Some dude, his girlfriend breaks up with him,
Matt.
is cheating on some other dude, and
Nope.
it's, oh, hi, Mark, and I did not hit her. I did not. It's bullshit. That's about the extent of
Okay.
my... And there's a spoon. I need to throw spoons, apparently, as you
Yep,
mentioned earlier.
correct.
I'm not taking my silverware. But,
After
you know,
reading-
Just like go to Walgreens and get a thing of plastic spoons.
This will be the first time that I've watched it since reading The Disaster Artist.
okay.
Right.
So now that I have
Which-
that new,
That's why they're doing this, is
Understand.
because we're going to be going to the Disaster Artist at some point. That's
So
coming out
excited.
soon.
I'm gonna go
Correct.
opening night.
Yes.
That's my Star Wars. That's how.
Star
much I'm
Wars
into
is also your
Disaster.
Star Wars.
But Star
but
Wars is
Disaster,
also
yeah.
my Star Wars.
Yes, obviously. So,
I respect that.
all right.
Can't wait.
I'm trying to think anything else coming out this weekend. Justice League, Punisher
Justice
coming out
League,
this weekend, and then
Punisher
the
this
Andy
weekend.
Kaufman Jim Carrey documentary. That's also.
I
something
can't
else
wait to
I'm
see.
looking forward to
Although
seeing that
I'm
on
wondering how
Netflix.
horrible that's going to be because
I'm a little worried,
I
but
think it's Jim Carrey behind that. I was listening to Stern, a rerun of Stern, and he mentioned that documentary, and this
Yeah.
rerun was from like 2014 maybe.
okay.
So I think he's been sitting on this for a while, and I think he's
That
the
makes
one that
sense.
has. So I don't know how.
I like
much
Andy
they're-
Kaufman, and I used to like Jim Carrey enough that I'm curious to see some of the behind the scenes stuff on this movie.
Yeah.
So,
I like Man in the Moon.
all right, you guys want to do some news?
I do.
Let's do some news. Let's see how this.
Public
They put a man
Oh,
on the
nope,
moon.
that's not the news intro. There we
Man
go.
on the
There's the news.
moon.
Oh, it usually helps if I do one of these too.
Oh, it does.
A little bit.
Yeah, we got some technical issues I got to work out behind the scenes once I get some more money.
You know I don't speak Spanish.
Money.
In English, please.
I
All right,
You know,
back to
I-
the group shot.
I,
Let's do
uh,
this there.
I completely sympathize for you,
Yeah.
but after a year and a half of trying to keep
Well, you
a
tried to do it with
radio
more
station,
people. Yeah, you tried to do it with like
of
how many
like-
people?
Yes, but out of all of those people, I was the one. Well, you were the one too. You were
Yeah,
also
really.
contributing money.
That's why I've got this nice mixer.
Rapid fire news.
All
Rapid
right.
fire news.
All right. Miles
Keith
wants to get into it.
Miles wants to get to the
All right, so let's get into the first news. Hold on, see here we go. See,
topic tonight. I think
yeah, and I'm totally okay with
I
that.
did too
so,
because I
all right, so
talk
it's
about this
official. Amazon announced the Lord of the Rings prequel trailer.
how many hours is this gonna be?
This is the best part because Miles doesn't know what we're doing for news, so this is all kind of spontaneous stuff. And hold on, so don't read this stuff I've got over here on the monitor because I don't want you to see what the rest of the stuff is.
That's okay.
So, Amazon, we mentioned last week that they were going to do. We mentioned that a Lord of the Rings TV show was going to come out, and we have found out that it's going to be on Amazon and it's going to be a prequel. So, is it going to be good? What are we thinking? So, Miles, you've got something obviously, so hit me with it.
So, allegedly, Amazon has paid $250 million to make this TV show. And what I
Is
mean
that
by
just to get
that,
the rights?
that's just the rights.
Ooh, holy
So
crap.
what happened was apparently someone at the Tolkien estate was like, "Hey guys, we haven't made a lot of money in a while. What should we do?" And some idiot genius was basically like, "What if we shop the rights to a TV show?
Yeah.
And what if we put this huge rights penalty on it that certainly no one will pay, but it might get us more than we might normally?" So they apparently took it to Amazon, Netflix, and HBO was just like, "This is insane. This is
Because
an
they-
insane thing to
and
do."
I feel like that's because I don't know. Maybe they have a show where they know how much this is going to cost per episode.
And so apparently that was the first step in this process. Then apparently Netflix offered them $100 million. And Amazon came in and it's just like, "No, we're doing everything. We're putting it all in." Because if you remember, Amazon said they wanted to change focus to make the next Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And when this was first rumored, I'm like, it would be hilarious if they literally went and made the TV version of what was to get Game of Thrones, which is TV's Lord of the Rings, to just go make Lord of the Rings for TV. There's such a absurd poetry to that. It's a full circle. It's a complete mess. There
They're
is
gonna
no
have to
writer.
use-
There
they're
is
gonna
no
have to use
writer.
LARPers.
There is no concept. It's literally just
Well,
it's gonna
yeah,
be a
yeah.
prequel.
You know what they're going to do? They're just going to be like, all right, first 20 pages. That's our first episode right there. Just read this, guys.
And here's the thing about it is like, so they're not even saying they could have said, okay, we'll adapt the Silmarillion. I don't think that would work, but fine. They could have said any number of things, but they've said nothing because there's literally no creative attached to this. And how you pay $250 million for an idea with no development, no
idea what
time,
they're gonna do
and then they
with it.
announce it. And they say, it's a prequel set before the events of the books. Oh, and there's a potential spin-off series. And I'm like, of what? A spin-off series of what? Like,
Gollum.
there is someone suggested
Gollum, the teenage years.
someone suggested basically like How I Met My Precious.
I'm okay with that.
I
I'd watch it.
I ultimately
watch a sitcom,
I
whatever it
ultimately
is.
sit in. I wish they would make a multi-camera sitcom. It would make me so happy. Just like set it in like a a hobbit hole and just like make everything huge. It would be hilarious. I think at the end of the day, my core conclusion to this is a fundamentally bad idea that honestly could work if they find the right creative team and develop this like a normal project. But I don't think Amazon seems interested in doing that,
I
which
got
is
an
why
idea.
I am skeptical.
Peter Jackson. What's he doing?
They actually, here's the fun fact: they have not called Peter Jackson.
Okay.
I saw a Deadline report that no
Well, they
communication
can't.
has been made to the team who made Lord of the Rings
They
in
can't.
any
They're
way.
going to call it like Steve Jackson because they can't afford Peter Jackson because they put all the money towards
Steve
the rights.
Jackson makes fantastic games, board games.
What's their timeline to try to make this happen? The whole point of the Lord of the Rings films was how long they took to make and get mounted up. Even the Hobbit films were not a quick process, and so it's like, given that, they need the show on the air soon for it to be meaningful.
So
What's-
what we're saying is if they want to hire a creative team, they're looking at it. And that's all they can afford right now.
Or listening to it, as you've
Yes,
mentioned. This is
yes.
maybe not always a video podcast for
hire
people.
us. We're gonna make it into a sitcom, and it's gonna be
But
3 cameras.
No, it's at least 4. Sometimes a
You need a
5th,
fourth.
just to give us.
We
It's
need a
well, it's
fifth
traditionally 4 cameras most of the time. Occasionally a 5th. But
after they touted the 48 frames per second, the super HD version of The Hobbit, I think that they would actually get
you
behind
see
a
it?
5 camera. Yes.
it was
Don't ever
amazingly
do
bad.
that. Don't ever do that. When you can see you can see makeup lines, like you can see
It's-
where the appliances.
I will
were put on
say, there
the
were a couple
faces.
of shots in the first Hobbit movie where they were like flying over the mountains and stuff that looked amazing.
Sure.
The second a person came on screen, bad.
Well, and some of the effects and stuff, like you didn't get the motion blur. I was like, well, this is good.
Yeah.
But then somebody comes on and like you can kind of see where like a
Yeah, the
flap
goblin-
of the appliance that's been glued to the
The
face is
goblin,
coming up.
the goblin stuff was okay for that reason.
Yeah.
The smoothness of it, absolutely. The 3D was better too. Like there was some. I get where they were going.
Anytime it was a person, I was like,
But yes.
this looks like it looked like a telenovela.
I would argue at this point in time that we are incapable of making any kind of judgment on whether or not it'll be good because it literally doesn't exist yet at all. Like there's nothing to judge except for a basic idea, no creative team, nothing.
And the story. I can make a judgment based off of the story that I've seen.
Well, we know the story, so if they make it a sitcom, we're in. That's
yeah,
kind of
that's
what I'm
where we're
hearing.
at. Yeah, That's
Okay.
the conclusion.
All
Only
right.
if it's a sitcom.
Only if it's a sitcom.
If it's some
So,
people walking.
Amazon, well, they could make that a sitcom and still do a lot of walk and talks.
Yeah.
I don't see why not.
Never seen it take so long to get to a freaking volcano.
All right.
took a while.
So next topic. Mattel and Hasbro, they're talking about merging, which is pointless because it's all going to be owned by Amazon, Google, Disney, Walmart.
I hope
Look at that way.
I hope they call themselves Hazmat. That would make me really happy.
Oh
I'm
my
just going to
God.
say.
Can we? I just want to get through 1 week where we don't advance the timeline towards what we saw in Idiocracy.
Good luck with that.
Just 1 week.
Nope, not
I
going to
mean,
happen.
I think you have a classic example here of, toy companies are increasingly in a competitive market space, and the marketplace is changing as a result of Amazon and changing shopping habits. So something of this nature, rather than fighting with each other, which they will continue to do on various levels.
Yeah.
Because, they fought over the Frozen rights. That switched between the two, if I remember correctly,
Yep.
in terms of who had access to the licensing. So
I feel like
removing
Mattel
that
may has them
barrier.
now.
But conglomeration is inevitable in every industry, but makes sense in toys.
What I can't even think what Mattel has right now. Obviously, the Hot Wheels in the Barbie toy lines.
Wrestling.
They do have Do they?
They currently do, I believe. It used to be
It
Jack's.
used to be Jack specific.
But it is Mattel now, I believe.
Hmm.
I don't have any of the Mattel stuff.
And then
but
Hasbro has everything else.
to a certain degree,
There's,
yes.
there's some other ones out there. I don't know who they
Playmates.
are. Yeah, I know that's about
With the
Playmates.
turtles.
That's about all I got. But I'm sure-
Lego.
Lego licensed their stuff out too.
Yeah, so Mattel owns American Girl. Based on that.
Yeah.
So that's a
Okay.
significant brand, if not a toy brand as we would normally understand it. Fisher
Let's see
Price.
here. Let's see what we got here.
And obviously Barbie.
Let's do some.
But
let's do
like a
some-
lot of Mattel's, I feel like a lot of Mattel's lines are pretty much down or niche.
Milton Bradley, aren't they? Are there more board games?
Milton Bradley
Morton.
is
That's the
Morton.
Ju-
Morton
that's the Jewish
Steakhouse.
version.
Milton Bradley is Mattel, and then Parker Brothers is Hasbro.
Okay, so even
I
they
believe.
still
I
fall
may have that
under.
backwards, but I think that's it.
Okay, so let's see here. Ideal.
We
There's
really know a lot about
toys.
toys, theme
Yeah.
parks, Ninja Turtles, video games. Like, if only we could apply this to things that could make us money, like finance and.
Why?
nothing
We
but
can
finance.
apply it to this and hopefully make money off of
Oh,
this
you know what?
eventually.
I
didn't
kind
even
of
think about
turned
it.
it into a job.
Yeah, that's true. Miles has
true.
been the biggest one to make it
That's
his
true.
job.
I'm just gonna
It's
put
impressive.
Yeah, I mean he
When-
plays the Wii U in his classes.
When you told us, I won't say anything, but when you told us the potential class that you may have been teaching, I was like, this is just ridiculous.
I almost signed up non-degree on the spot.
I was like, I wish
Yeah.
I hadn't dropped out of college.
Yeah,
You can do non-degree.
it's true.
I may come back and do a non-degree.
Yeah, just do it for the
I'll audit
semester,
that
just
class.
to sign the class. Yeah. Let's see, Palisades. There's McFarlane. I saw on the thing too.
Yeah, but I feel like that those are niche
Um,
lines.
They are, but I mean that's
As far
yeah.
as like toys, it's Mattel.
FAO
It's-
Schwartz. They're still a thing.
They're not.
No, that's
No?
I don't think these are
Gone.
active companies.
They're
Oh.
gone.
They're gone.
Yeah.
They-
Last time I was in New York, they were,
Yep,
they were
defunct.
gone.
2015. Yep, good call. Sorry.
So I mean, obviously different licensors, different smaller examples.
This is a horrible list.
Did anybody ever go into FAO Schwartz for any reason other than it was in big? Like every
Just
time
to
I
see the
went
piano.
in,
Yeah.
it
They-
was like
They had a Muppet kit that I wanted to get, but I never got
Oh.
around to
I
getting.
have a friend who has one of those.
Yeah, is it good? Is it?
It's good, yeah.
what was it, the workshop?
Yeah, where you
Yeah.
can like make your own little Muppet out of their little kit.
I
Yeah.
think I
I thought
went.
about
I
doing
think
that.
I saw it physically.
I
one of the
think yeah,
times I
that
went
would
there.
have worked. But yeah, no,
I
that's
did
good.
seem to go there. I have been there. Way
But
too
now
many
there's no
times, but
no toy store other than the Disney store left in Times Square because Toys R Us is gone too.
That was a fantastic Toys R Us.
It was.
We still have a Toys R Us around here.
Yeah, but it
Well,
wasn't.
yeah, but
that
no,
one.
I'm waiting
The
for.
the Times Square one was a rental issue.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Is that they
gotcha.
basically rent got too high, they couldn't justify keeping it.
the
The rent's too
damn
damn high.
high.
You saw my post earlier.
Yes.
This is what happens.
All right, so
Yes, synergy.
yes. Next topic here. Niantic is following up Pokemon Go with a Harry Potter AR. So I can't remember how to pronounce it, but Axio Flash in the Pan. Isn't that the right? Is that the right thing?
You're such a Potterhead. it just shows.
Axio, yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. Axio.
I think it's Accio.
I
Axio,
think
whatever.
I think yeah, this is I think it's the smartest extension point they have. I think the idea of sort of people wanting to imagine themselves as being in that world of seeing magic come to life around them.
Guys,
Isn't that what Matt was doing when he was in Disney a few weeks ago?
I could take this app to Diagon Alley.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll add location specific stuff like in
I
like
bet
those
they
areas to make that work. I mean, I think to that degree also, I mean, like technically speaking, the game that Pokemon Go was built off of, that Niantic had made before that,
Ingress.
Ingress was like kind of spy driven and kind of more, I think, in line with Harry Potter than Pokemon in terms
Yeah.
of like the gameplay style.
Well, that's
and
what
those
they've
types of
said.
things.
The what this Harry Potter Wizards Unite will be influenced by Ingress, and they're gonna people can collect boosts. They defend locations, explore the environment, mixing the real world and,
Yep.
and the digital. So
I
they'll
gotta
fight
tell you,
legendary
that sounds like
beasts
something more that I would play.
more
that's
than
the thing.
Pokemon Go.
Pokemon
I think
Go.
the thing with Pokemon Go is Pokemon Go took the notion of collecting
Mm-hmm.
and sort of moved from there, but it took a really long time to get into a competitive function,
Yeah,
right, or even a cooperative
and
function.
then by that point, I
Oh,
was
I
already
didn't
out.
By
Yeah.
that point, I was long out of
Yeah.
the game, and so
Which
I understand that for some people got them back in, moving through. I feel like this is like putting in a person's team matters a bit more. I think it's also a case where what's going to be interesting is again how they balance the casual. When I was in Los Angeles, I spent some time with my cousin, who I'd been playing Pokemon Go the last time I was there, so it was last summer, right when it had first come out. and he has just started playing recently. But I very quickly discovered that like the game did not train him how to play that game very well.
Yeah.
He wasn't battling. He wasn't removing his catches. He wasn't trying to evolve stuff. Like he was just walking around with it and catching stuff.
That's all I was doing at the beginning.
And I think sort of the casual nature of that, I'm curious, like, part of the reason Pokemon Go was so big was how easily accessible it was. You could just jump in, catch a couple Pokemon, have an immediate sense of satisfaction. How
Run into
will
people
this,
how they're doing it.
how will this repeat that? Right? If it's
Right.
more about a long-term game, more about defending, more about those details, is this more of like the gamer's equivalent? Whereas Pokemon Go was more of the sort of opening.
I mean, you've definitely got a property that's got a stronger, more devoted fan base even than Pokemon. I know Pokemon's pretty big, but it's not Harry Potter big.
Pokemon's got more international range. I
don't
think.
care about internationally.
I think your big deal. I think your difference here is that I think people are more likely to be invested in the narrative of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But I feel like Pokemon is something that, from a game perspective, is more connected to that process. I think regular like Harry Potter fans will download this, but will they play it as a game? Like, do they have that sort of gaming instinct in the same way?
I mean,
And
I enjoy Harry
see what
Potter
you're
and I
saying.
enjoy gaming, but I'm probably gonna be like Pokemon Go eventually. It's gonna be like, all right, it was fun. It's gonna be flash in the pan, and I'll be done.
Yeah.
You know, which fun fact for those new to the show, Pokemon Go is how I met Myles.
It's true.
Right down the street.
true.
Sarah,
Yeah.
we were walking down the street
Right there.
and ran into Myles,
And
started
he
talking
said,
to him.
"Hey,
And we're like, hey, we live on the same street.
We did.
And now we're best friends.
Yeah, that's
Or,
what
you know,
happened.
maybe just friends. I don't know.
I mean,
No,
it's
be best
close
friends.
it's fine.
Okay,
We're
okay.
good. Let's not talk about that. Let's just move on. Next news. Next news.
Aw.
It's awkward.
Oh. All right. What else have we got next? Hulu. Speaking of gaming,
Right.
Hulu is on the Switch.
It is. Have you tried it?
which- No. Why? I've got a PlayStation. I've got an Apple TV, and I've got an iPad. Why would I use Hulu on the flipping Switch? What is the point?
So Nintendo got a lot of flack for the fact they launched with no streaming services, and basically a lot of people complaining that how do you compete in this marketplace without some type of streaming option?
Maybe they should focus on the
Because
chat
they-
feature first, and then actually try to focus on streaming services that I can get anywhere else.
Maybe people just need to shut the hell up.
Well, that's a given.
It's a
That's-
gaming system.
I think that's the challenge, though, is that increasingly in this day and age, certainly Microsoft made a huge push with the Xbox One to not be a living room console. Sony, to a lesser degree, has done that. We've now seen Microsoft move far away from that. Sony seems to have abandoned as well. But I think, it's good to have the streaming services on there
Oh yeah, sure.
insofar as once you can get them on there, there's no reason not to have them. But in terms of prioritizing them, I think is what we lack.
Well, Amazon Prime was on my PlayStation, and it's not on my Apple TV yet. So I mean, I still
That is happening for the record.
It
but do you know
is,
why
but-
that is?
because they finally heard the people complaining about it. Essentially,
Yes, but the
Yeah,
real
okay,
reason
but
is the fact that both Apple and Amazon wanted to direct you to their respective, storefronts to buy content and rent
Okay.
movies. So Apple would not allow Amazon onto Apple TV because they didn't want you using Amazon to stream your
right?
content.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
So eventually they're breaking down because they're realizing to a certain degree that's not the big part of their business model. It's more about brand awareness. Amazon's, I think, willing to probably maybe even pay Apple to do it because they want their original content in that area. But yeah,
makes
that was
sense.
that wasn't so much about popular outcry. It was more about Apple finally breaking down the barrier.
Well, yeah.
But
I mean, I knew why they weren't. I just
Yeah.
didn't realize it was just them breaking down. I figured they were like, all right, people want this stuff. Let's just give it to them, kind of thing.
We'll
so,
see.
have you tried that? Speaking of, just because I wanted to get your opinion on it, I haven't talked to you about it yet, Miles. The Movies Anywhere. Have you gotten into
So
that yet?
I haven't connected it yet, and part of the reason for that is because I never really did any of the ultraviolet stuff or any of
Okay.
those types of things. I do have a couple of Disney digital codes and stuff that if
Yeah.
I were to connect to it, I'd probably see pop up. But ultimately, to be honest with you, I have all of my physical media anyway, and I've never really bothered to
Okay.
upload a lot of that stuff.
See, I got
so-
the physical media, but it usually comes with digital stuff.
Yeah.
And I will. It's Disney stuff will now go to iTunes and vice versa. There,
Yeah.
well, Disney Movies Anywhere that synced up with iTunes already, so that
Yes.
was nice.
Yes.
And then a lot of Universal and Warner Brothers stuff was on the I guess Ultraviolet / Voodoo because I just have that's where
Yep,
I
yep.
take mine too. And now that it's all in one app, it's glorious.
That
And
would
my TV
make-
shows aren't, but the
Yeah,
movies are.
that would make much. I mean, for me, I've really stopped buying movies
okay.
more than anything else.
Physical or digital, both.
Both. I just don't tend to buy movies anymore.
Okay.
I find that I just don't tend to rewatch them enough to make it justifiable for me.
Nah, there's stuff on
So
streaming.
in that era, given the limited time that I have, I definitely find I haven't really gravitated towards that.
Okay.
I use an app called Movies Anywhere, but oh no, that's not true. It's called the Pirate Bay.
That's still around, huh? That's still accessible? Government hasn't shut that down yet?
No, surprisingly.
At least move to Plex, dude. Like, at least move to Plex.
Plex is the one I've heard about.
Never. It's always $19.99 in my house.
Oh, given by the Chrome comic covers, that makes sense.
That's right.
Just littered all out through your out your living
you need
room.
some music? I got a private Napster server. It's fantastic.
I've downloaded all my songs and then recorded them to these cassette tapes. All right, last little news, getting us into the topic for the evening. EA and DICE have earned itself the most downvoted comment in Reddit history.
Really? So the most hated company in America,
Yep.
and I'm going to say the world,
Has now gotten the most downvoted
is now
comment in Reddit history.
most downvoted.
And that's saying a lot because there's a lot of stuff on Reddit.
It's a lot of stuff, a lot
yeah.
of garbage.
And yeah, this is in Sarah's little notes is a quite prestigious honor considering that the site is a breeding ground for trolls.
Sure.
So, and it kind of rolls us into our topic for the evening, and we've got
So,
almost a full hour to talk about it. So, basically, I'm going to set it up for you guys. I'm going to let you guys roll on this one for
Sure.
a little bit. They gave you anyone some background who hasn't been on the Pop Show page, facebook.com/Pop Show. It broke yesterday that EA, if you tallied up how much
So,
the credit prices
Just kind
were
of going
for
back a little, just to
for
give a
even
little
further.
background.
Okay.
So EA has a service called EA Access,
Okay.
and
We're going back even further. Okay.
they put Battlefront 2 onto their service for 10 hours, which they do with all of their big releases. It's like an extra kind of step of, here you go, the game's going to come out next week. Have at it for 10 hours. So during that 10 hours, it was discovered that there's a loot box system, which, this
As
is
there is.
happening
The
now.
first-
increasingly common.
It's increasingly common, and we just saw it in EA's Shadow of Mordor, or War
Shadow of
whichever,
War, yeah.
whichever the
newest one is,
sequel
yeah.
It's terrible names. So there's a loot box system where all of your star cards, which are your upgrades, all of your upgradable pieces, things like that, new guns and stuff, and most importantly, the hero characters are all locked behind this lockbox system. So during the 10-hour playing, one of a Reddit user went through and surmised that to get Darth Vader and or Luke Skywalker, you would have to spend like 40 hours of game time to get enough credits to be able to purchase it.
That was basically the conclusion.
And that's pretty much the conclusion. That goes out there and the internet loses their mind because, let's be fair, and to play both sides, play devil's advocate, EA gets a lot of heat for just being EA.
True.
And it's Reddit. So obviously they jump on. How dare them? They're charging us $60. Now, to be fair, this time they're trying to correct the amount of flames and heat that they got over the first Battlefront when they charged for all of the DLC. And according to some people that may be in this room, they released a game that was very, 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 very bare bones in attempt to push people into buying season pass, another $70 season pass.
Yeah. I bought the ultimate version.
Which came out to how much?
$150, I think.
$150 to get all of this. And no, we're not talking about a complete campaign and a complete set of heroes and a complete game that you bought for $60.
This is basically just a first-person shooter with Star Wars skins on it. Yeah,
this was
agree with
basically
that.
a piece of the game, and to get a full game out of it, questionably, you had to buy all of the DLC.
Yep.
So to correct their sins with the original games, they announced and got a lot of goodwill when two things: one, a campaign, and two, all future DLC will be free. Turns out, sure, it's all going to be free, but it's all locked behind loot crates.
Yes.
Which you'll either have to pay real money or spend tons and tons of time, what surmises to up to 40 hours to get some of these characters. And that's not even, counting loot cards, these star cards that give you modifiers and weapons and
Yeah, because there were star cards in the first game.
there were,
and
they make a difference.
And despite the amount of money I paid for that game, I played maybe 2 of the 4 or 5 DLCs that eventually came out, just because other things happened. I mean, my schedule kind of got busy, but I just never got around to it because they just, with these DLCs, they just keep it's every few months. And at that point, I've moved on.
So, in response to all of this, because it's been a bad 2 days for EA, I would definitely not want to, knowing what I've heard about the working environment anyway, it must have been really bad for some people over the last 2 days. Guarantee there's some dudes that haven't gone home.
They actually took the return button off of their I guess the store,
Which
the
means
online store.
they must have been
people
getting hit hard.
I think they were.
With just people reversing their...
So, but then ultimately EA basically came out and said, and basically their response to this when it was first raised was initially our sense of playtime based on how people start playing the game, how much time they're spending, how much time it's taking. They will always adjust our expectations based on this.
Right.
But also, in the beta, this didn't exist, and so it was
Correct.
sort of an addition.
Did you guys play the beta at all?
No, I heard it was very bare bones.
It was kind of bare bones, but you got to go into the classes. You got to go in 3, I think, different types of battles. It gave me better hope. I mean, don't get me wrong. I enjoy the first game, but I'm also a sucker for anything I can do Star Wars wise. I watch Rebels. I mean, I collect the comics, so I will admit I'm a bit of an apologist in that sense. But I will agree, based off what I've seen with Battlefront 2 versus what I had with Battlefront 1, I agree. It was a bare bones game. It wasn't much. Honestly, it just put me in the mood to get the old PlayStation 2 back out and play those games, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
So,
but it's at the core of that but then they came out and said, after I think outcry was loud enough, they weren't just going to say, we'll adjust this in the future, we'll pay attention to it. They immediately said, we're cutting it from 40,000 credits to 10,000.
Yep.
Everything got cut down dramatically.
Which,
and no, did you see their argument though for why these numbers were high? Because it wasn't because they're greedy, because they weren't going to admit that.
No, of course not.
What they said is they want it to feel like an achievement to unlock these heroes.
I read that.
That they want you to feel like you're working towards a goal in the game.
I'm fine with that, except for this is for fun. These are things that we play for fun. And a lot of people now, especially as they become adults, and that segment is growing all the time, just don't have time to do this.
So John, one of the Facebook commenters commented, it's like paying $60 for a Madden NFL game, but the only team you can play is the Cleveland F and Browns for 40 hours until you can lock one other team.
Well, and I think that's one of those cases where, obviously it's not exactly the same as that, but it is sort of that sense
similar vein.
of you used to be that you paid $60 for a game, you bought the game. You got the experience and moved from there.
Right.
That model, in some context, is now dead. Now, mind you, Nintendo has released a bunch of games this year that still follow this model. Nintendo has largely resisted, on some level, this kind of clarion call, so it's not as though everybody's moving towards this.
Yes
but
and
if
no,
you're,
because Mario Run, they also got a lot of flack
we're
for.
we're not talking about mobile right now. Let's talk about
Okay,
platforms. We'll get to
console,
mobile
alright.
in a second. But I do think that what you have...
Stirred Miles up is the best.
What you have, though, is an example of these big-name publishers who are under increasing expectations from shareholders. Budgets for these games are increasingly going higher and higher and higher, and yet you're not going to dramatically expand the audience for a AAA, hardcore game in this day and age. It's not like... So movie budgets are also going up, right?
Everything's going up.
But...
The price is just too damn high.
Yes. But with movie budgets going up, it's in part because global box office is increasing. Countries like China are dramatically expanding the number of screens available to them. The international box office is expanding. That gives you space to grow. There's nowhere for the video game industry to grow right now.
Right.
And so they have to change their business models in order to remain basically financially stable in that system. And so game as service.
Yeah,
as
and from that
you're
perspective, I
constantly
totally get it.
engaged
Because,
in.
I mean, think about it. What were the budgets for games back in the 80s for Nintendo or Super Nintendo?
I mean, you go back and look at Atari. You had one programmer working on those games, budgets were nothing. Getting into the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo.
And what remind us because you worked at a toy store back in the day. So what were the cost of video game cartridges back in the day?
Well, see, that's the thing. Video game cartridges haven't really changed much. Back in the Nintendo and the NES and the SNES games, they were $40 or $50. They're $49.99 for your AAA game. Boom.
And that was back in
There's only been one increase. Now, here's the thing. Back in the mid-90s, cart prices went insane.
I paid like $109 Canadian for WWF Warzone.
This is America. Use American
in
dollars.
I
Convert
need to,
that.
Well, it would have been like 85 or something.
So like 95 for there were a couple of Genesis carts that came out. There was Phantasy Star 4. There was Legend of Oasis. There was a couple of Virtual Racing. These were like $90 carts.
Yeah.
For Final Fantasy 3, I know I paid $65 for it. They were increasingly expensive,
So
especially in '95.
At the time, like when you factor, like games were expensive. Don't get us wrong, but they were also clearly bounded experiences that
Exactly.
you would play and have and
But
engage with.
There's no way to patch. They don't become a living document.
Yeah.
Travis wants to jump in on this, so I'm going to switch chairs. I'm going to do some producing while he chimes in on this stuff. So I'm going to let you boys just roll with this. Keep talking.
Keeps tapping out.
Okay, well, so I mean, so I guess for my purpose, it's sort of like the culture of gaming has changed so dramatically that it makes sense the games themselves and how we experience them would change, but at the same time, there is a tough transition to justify in an environment where you're still being expected to pay $60 or $80 for limited edition.
It's
or
not
all those types of
inherently
costs.
bad, either. Not inherent. Well, it depends. It depends on the game. I mean, the fact that these are now essentially living documents, you know.
Yeah.
Because it used to be you release a game and that's the code's all on the cart.
It has benefits.
And
there are
it does have
to the
benefits.
system, but
and
not
and
in
there
this
are
kind of
people that are doing it really well. And I'm about to come off as a fanboy, but Blizzard does it incredibly
I knew you were
well.
going.
Blizzard does it incredibly
So-
well. Are you going to bring up Overwatch? Because that's going to be a dumb idea for you to do.
No, okay. So here's the thing. So
You're going to get ripped apart.
Overwatch brings in loot boxes. Okay, fine, whatever.
What does
it's
a loot
all
box add?
comms. I know it's all cosmetic.
When you play, but okay. So here's the thing with Overwatch. I'm glad you brought up Overwatch because Overwatch brings in the loot box system. I fully agree. I fully went into Overwatch thinking that as soon as new maps came out, as soon as new characters came out, I was going to be paying for those characters. And surprise, I'm not. The only time I ever pay money in Overwatch is if I want to splurge on some loot boxes because I want my Zenyatta to look like Cthulhu.
Sure.
And no other, and you know what? Honestly, outside of that, we get so many loot boxes in that game, and they only serve one purpose, and that's to get a skin or get a stupid voice line. At no time do I ever feel compelled to spend money on that game because it's going to help me in any way.
Sure, but the problem is that here's Overwatch, and it comes in, and everybody and their brother falls in love with that game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get, well, okay.
Except for
And
Keith.
I actually didn't either.
I never opened
for
my
the most
copy.
part, you
Okay,
know,
nobody-
it's a
nobody
massive
likes
hit.
it.
Yeah.
Now, Blizzard has a track record of trying to monetize other things. Diablo 3, when it initially launched, had the live auction house or whatever,
It
where
did.
everybody could dig
did.
out weapons and try to
And you know
sell them
what?
for real money and do all of those things. Now, Blizzard
They tried
smartly
it.
stays away
Rolled it
from
back.
that with Overwatch, but
Don't get into WoW. No, don't bring up
no,
WoW.
I'm not worried about WoW. WoW's been its own thing, and it's following a model that's been around forever and a day.
And also a
and it
game
just
that
kinda keeps
benefits.
going.
I think a game that benefits from constant patches and upgrades.
Sure, because it's
Yeah.
literally a service. Like you're literally
Sure,
paying for a
$15
service. It's
a
a
month,
different
and-
conversation.
And you get a pretty decent value. I mean, some people can say the progression at the top
Yeah.
tiers between expansion packs is a little, but they bring out their patches within their expansion packs. Their patches are what most people would pay, would charge money for.
Sure.
So I think Blizzard does well. Now they also sell things like cosmetic, and
I feel like Travis hasn't gotten to
name
his point yet.
traffic.
Okay, yeah.
Name-
So as far as Blizzard goes with the Overwatch loot boxes and everything, the big issue, they have not themselves really, I guess, abused the system so much. They're not monetizing to the point where they're clearly saying, hey, here's a part of the game that we're just going to lock behind everything and just beat you over the head with that you have to have it.
Basically,
Now-
force you either to grind for it or to pay for it.
Right.
That's the two options
Now-
that are presented.
The issue, though, is that you have people who play these games, and it doesn't matter if they're 13 or if they're 37 or whatever they are, and they get that little ding, and then boom, up comes their 3 random items or whatever pops out of the box, and they get that little rush. That, oh man, I'm getting that thing.
Yeah, but,
Cool, awesome. And then they start spending that money. And you get these kids who,
but you've
mom,
got
can I
people
borrow
that
the
can't
credit
handle-
card, whatever.
That's people who can't handle their
I understand.
their lives.
Sure, some people can't. But a 13-year-old doesn't know any better. To him, that's just like, oh man, I got to get that skin, that Halloween skin. It's only going to be around for a month. I got to do this. Now,
I feel like
it's-
that's a different point though. I feel like that's a
Sure.
That's a
No, but you're
completely
saying-
the issue is
Like-
that's where this starts. Is like for Blizzard, they may not be trying to exploit their audience insofar as, hey, we're going to monetize every little thing and really gouge everybody. But the problem is that everybody else takes a look at what they've been successful doing in generating extra revenue that way.
But I don't understand why
and
we're
starts-
blaming. I don't understand why we're blaming Overwatch for that, because it's clearly
Overwatch-
coming from the mobile division.
Yeah. Like, I guess
Well,
that's the point
it
where it's
isn't
like,
just mobile,
so
but
what we're dealing with here, I think, is twofold. One case, I think you're seeing this is very much a matter of mobile gaming, right? The logic of free-to-play games is basically you can play them for free, but if you really want to advance, you either need to grind for days and months and years,
Yeah.
or you just pay the money and you keep moving. That model of gaming is designed at that level because people who just want to drop in and play casually can play for free, and people who actually really want to play the game will spend thousands of dollars, the whales, as they call them, moving through the system. That emerged in mobile gaming because that was a way, at a mobile gaming space, no one's going to pay $60 for a mobile game.
No.
Sure.
Right? No one's going to pay $10 for a mobile game. We
Turns
very
out
much
nobody wants to
learned,
pay
right?
$3.
Nobody wants to pay $3, right? Basically, people realize that in that space, to get people gaming in that environment, that's a problem and inherent to that system. The problem is, and I think at that core, trying to translate that model into a non-free-to-play game, into a $60 experience, starts to play that out. What you're, I think, getting at is there is an ethical question around loot boxes, and it's basically gambling. It's basically
makes
gambling.
sense.
yeah,
and
it's the
I
same
just think
as,
it's a different. I think it's a different.
And I think, I don't really,
Animal altogether.
as long as you present it as cosmetic, as long as it's just a thing that you can do and have access to, I don't think there's like a moral wrong or an ethical
Yeah.
wrong to that. I think the slippery slope argument you're making is, well, if Blizzard does it, everybody's going to do it, and they're not going to be ethical, and kids fall into this trap, and they don't learn how to spend money. I think we need to treat gamers as being smarter than that.
generally okay. So
And
generally,
I bring up Overwatch just because I've seen Overwatch come up as like this was the genesis. How dare them? And specifically in the whole Battlefront 2 debate.
So Overwatch isn't even the genesis of it. If you want to go back to like the first proper loot boxes getting dropped, you'd have to go back to Team Fortress 2, and they started doing it in 2007.
Yeah.
So I'm not blaming Overwatch for bringing this to the table.
I think Overwatch
just-
is just it's the it game right now that everybody's
Yeah,
playing. So
and-
it's gonna obviously get gonna get a little heat because of
But Overwatch is going to catch a little flack. But then you get EA sitting
very
here,
defensive about Overwatch.
like he was saying, trying to use a mobile model in a premium AAA space, and it's even been I think it was
This is a $60 game that
Boogie
you just paid for.
2988, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
YouTuber, pretty well known. He was playing the arcade mode in his early access, and just like a mobile game, after a certain point, it locked him out from being able to earn any in-game currency in the single-player arcade mode.
I'm completely out then. That's
From-
effed up.
Yeah, once it blocked out, it said, "Oh, hey, come back in 12 hours,
No.
and then you can make more currency and be able to buy your upgrades and whatever."
Yeah.
And so you're seeing the full freemium model get moved up into a $60 price tier.
$60 price tier. That's
And
crazy.
that's it's pure
Yeah,
insanity.
And the whole reason behind this ultimately is because, increasingly they're realizing we're spending, tens of millions of dollars, over $100 million in some of these games to make that back. It can't stop making money after you make your first purchase,
Sure.
right? That needs to get more money from you over time in that case. And originally that's what DLC was for, but DLC takes time to develop. Everyone's trying to move on to the next game, iterating franchises year after year. That's more increasingly a competition.
John brings up a good
Yeah.
point with Witcher 3. With The Witcher 3, it wasn't all free DLC.
Yeah, the
That's
story
not true.
packs,
The
Blood and
story
Wine and
packs
stuff they
weren't.
made you pay for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there were two paid,
But they were huge.
But they were huge.
huge
Yeah.
campaigns.
You felt
huge.
And
you
the
felt good
games-
about what
yeah.
you got for your
And
money.
the game wasn't empty without them.
and they
at the end
did
of the
give you a
day-
lot of free. There was
Yeah.
a lot of free DLC with it. There was just those two
Yeah,
story packs.
But I think what you realize when it comes to games like that, and it's like, yeah, just cosmetic, but when the game, playing the game starts to be buried behind it, you run into that problem and system. And I think at the end of the day, no freemium model is ever going to make a person happy. No one is ever going to be perfectly content to spend money on something and then be expected to pay more to work with that. The difference is that I think there's a perception that gamers are effectively like willing to play the game in a way that like you present something in front of them, it's a challenge to work around it. They can either play it out or they can just pay for it out. Like play it out versus pay it out are the two options that they're presenting. And I think oftentimes they look and see, okay, if gamers are willing to buy $108 collector's editions with just a trophy in it that's obviously poorly painted, right? If they're willing to buy into so many of the gimmicks the game industry has thrown at them, this is like the next gimmick they're throwing at people, where they're like, hey guys,
here's the thing,
like we think you're gullible enough for this.
Those collector's editions don't punish people who don't have the time,
correct,
or don't want to shell out money.
That's the difference.
Or can't shell out money. So they're going to feel lesser. I don't feel lesser because I don't have a Cthulhu Zenyatta skin, which I do.
Yes,
we just got to work that in there.
But you know,
But there is a sense now that it's not so much about being lesser. It's more a matter of, am I having a worse experience with this game than somebody else is? Or am I just even having a different experience of this game, right? The notion that I would own a game, spend money on it, and not be able to play it the same way as somebody else.
Yeah.
Like, that seems against the purpose of what that looks like.
You know what a good example of that? A few years ago, Street Fighter 4 comes out, and not only do they...
Is it 5 or 4?
Well, 5 is still doing it, but 4 came out, and not only did they have downloadable DLC characters, they were on the disc, locked on the disc.
The whole on-disc DLC question is the whole other detail.
And you just had to pay again. To unlock something that you paid for physically.
Right.
And I mean, like, you know, increasingly, you know, there's a sense that, okay, you release an unfinished game and fix it over time, right?
Right. Well, Mass Effect Andromeda, just right there from EA. And on top of that, they had their premium edition that was supposed to have this big, all-encompassing season pass for DLC that they turn around not even 6 months later and announce, oh, it's never coming.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so...
Sorry.
I don't know if either of you have...
EA again.
I don't know if either of you have read Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, which is Jason Schreier's
Actually
book.
working on it right now.
Okay. So it goes into a lot of these case studies, I think, and explores some really interesting dynamics in terms of how the game industry functions and how it sort of plays out in a sense of value. But one of the things I found so interesting about that was looking at it from the perspective of, like, what are you trying to give the player of these games? Right? And so one of the examples of that book is Stardew Valley, which I mentioned earlier, which is a farming simulator developed by one dude sitting at his computer, right, over time. And he was creating this experience for this community designed to be played for tens, hundreds of hours if people so desired in that circumstance. And because he's one guy with no overhead, just him and a program making this game, right? Yeah. It's priced at like $15-20. It's a clear sort of limit in terms of what it's looking at. But he can do that because it's just him, and he's made tens of millions of dollars selling that game.
Sure, well, and Thomas Happ's done the same thing with Axiom Verge, which is my big indie love fest.
The challenge in this circumstance...
Love fest is Overwatch.
The challenge, I think, is you now run into a situation where these games have huge overhead and will continue to have huge overhead, particularly if it's an ongoing multiplayer game, servers and things of this nature, huge scale and those details. And so they're always looking at that and thinking, how can we take this to a publisher and make this viable? What is the question of viability? How can we protect against that future? And so, you know, this point that John makes, it's a Star Wars game. I paid $60 for and I can't play as Darth Vader without paying more money. At the end of the day, what they're sort of saying is, go play the campaign. Play those details. We're giving you a game, but we want you to work towards something. We want to make this so you're committed to it for a longer period. You'll play it for more time. And you'll get a sense of accomplishment, and somebody else will just pay money and get Darth Vader and move on their way. And this is the future of gaming in their eyes. That's what we're being told. Sure. That's basically what we're being given in this moment. And I guess what I'm curious about from your perspective is, like, so has mobile gaming trained people enough to understand this model that they're willing to adapt it, that we feel like there's a moment of transition? Because, like, free-to-play stuff, you guys ever paid for a mobile game?
I've never been involved enough in anything that I really felt the need.
I bought mobile games before the to play model.
I paid for the Super Mario Run,
Yeah.
and then I
did that
also
one.
paid for the Sonic one just because Sonic. It was like $2, and I got
So-
all the whole Sonic game. So
I mean, I put real money
That's
into
it?
Pokemon Go to maximize playtime in certain circumstances.
yeah, I did too. Actually,
So like
now
I
think
spent,
about it.
I think I spent, I
did
think
it once.
I agreed to spend. I think I spent $40 total, which was the cost of a 3DS game, because I got way more time out of that than I got out of a 3DS game. So I
Yeah.
thought that was like a justifiable expense for me. I
and
also
I think that comes down to it.
and yeah.
Is it justifiable for you as a person?
And I also oftentimes would, if I liked a game that I got for free and it had like a free to play component to it or DLC or something, I would often do that to show my support of the developer of the game, because I'm like, I like this game, I got value out of it, I feel bad giving you nothing. I'm
Sure.
that person.
Makes sense.
But the point I would sort of make from that is then I feel trained to know from a mobile game like what I expect to get value out of and what I qualify value. I don't know if I know what qualifies as a justifiable expense on top of $60.
right.
Like the industry hasn't shown me something where I'm like, you know what, that's
No.
a justifiable reason why I
No,
would shell an extra $5.
And for me, I mean, the only time I ever spend money on any of this is if I got a little extra money. I'm really trying to get. I actually do want a skin. Sometimes I'll put $10 in. Boom, let me get a couple of extra loot boxes and see if I can get it. But I'm also at a place where I can afford to do that.
On occasion,
And
yeah.
on occasion, as long as I'm not just sitting there buying $100 worth of loot boxes, which I can't imagine anybody in Overwatch doing. They give you a
sure
lot.
people do.
They give you a lot. You get a lot of loot boxes.
Still, I mean, there's got to be people. There has to be people.
No, just in my own experiences, being stationed out in Bahrain with the Navy, I had a kid that was working for me in my shop, and every week, I mean, he was always in money problems because every week this kid was dropping anywhere from $50 to $250 on Overwatch loot and
Okay,
Clash
that's
of
just
Clans.
nuts.
Now, obviously, that's one extreme example of somebody who clearly can't handle their
And that's a
Yeah.
that's a
their
mental
stuff,
problem.
and that's a problem, and he ended up having to get legitimate help for
yeah, that's
getting that under
is-
under control.
A serious concern that I think has to be taken into account here.
Yeah.
I guess the question is, ultimately, they're not necessarily they're not forcing anyone to do anything. It's just that they're redefining value and they're doing
Sure.
it at this late stage. And I think that's where, to some degree, in the future, some games we will see longer term. They'll say up front, we're designing it in this way. There's going to be a serious to this. And if they had said this 3 months ago, there would have been backlash, but that would have been one
Yeah.
thing.
Well, kind of going back to what Matt was talking about earlier with the cartridges and how they were getting out of hand in the middle of the 90s there.
Yeah.
So Phantasy Star 4, the reason why that game cost $80-$90 was because it was a 24 meg cart,
Yep.
Yep.
which was easily
Yeah.
the largest
There were
size cart you
reasons.
could get.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
there was always
there were
something.
reasons.
Usually there was a hardware upgrade like the
wasn't
SFX chip
everything.
in
And
Star
cards
Fox or
cost
whatever.
money. Like cards cost
Yeah.
money. It's the whole reason why
Well,
now,
especially in the
there's-
mid '90s, there was a
But-
problem.
Yeah.
There was a weird shortage of something. I think there was a chip shortage.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, of course, obviously the Super FX chip and
Virtua
whatever-
Racer had like the VFX
The
chip,
VFX chip,
whatever
yeah,
they
yeah.
called that in Sega side. But the thing of it is that all of those little upgrades to those carts were in the name of making sure you got as complete an experience
yeah.
as
Yeah.
possible, rather than, okay, we're going to chuck this kind of busted game out and then we'll throw you a second cartridge 6 months down the road
Well,
to make it work. We'll,
see,
you know,
Well,
to some degree, though.
except for the Saturn, they did that with Virtua Fighter.
Yeah,
You
I
got
think,
the Virtua
Well, yeah.
Fighter,
Yeah.
and then they brought out the new.
Well, and I think
yeah,
that's
they
one
had
of the-
issues there.
I think honestly, it's one of the challenges we're dealing with here, because it's one thing I think with like so NBA 2K18 had these exact same complaints levels
Right.
against it. Basically, you couldn't use the My Career mode properly without buying
Yeah.
things. It would take forever to do things. But to a certain degree, I think those types of franchises, because they're yearly releases, we always expect them to be kind of janky and unfinished and kind of a work in progress.
Yeah.
And I think there's like Madden, the same thing. Like if those types of games move towards this model, I think there's a certain expectation that you're buying them every year. They have to rush to get them out, a certain schedule, those types of details. I think Battlefront 2 is different because of Star Wars, because of being more of a prestige title, not being a yearly release, not
Yeah.
being an iterative function,
Right.
being more of a sort of marquee game. That you're taking the whole thing you marketed this game off of, right? Heroes and villains coming together, fighting with this, and you're saying, actually, you can't do that until you do this instead,
Right.
right? by choosing to do that, you are locking a huge part of the experience behind that in a way that realistically in the sports games, it's like you're only going to be playing that game for 10 months and then you're going to get the new game and go from there.
Right.
There's a different relationship to that where I feel like this, with the sports games, the translation to mobile-like logics, I don't think will be as aggressively turned against as what will happen if in a true AAA title, a true shooter, those types of kind of games. I think it's a different conversation for that reason.
Yeah. Well, and sports games in general, EA and 2K have both said that they are looking, as they move into the future, to go to the game as service model because it makes sense to just keep rolling the title and upgrading every year rather than initially sending out a new retail release.
Except they know they can charge the full $60.
Sure.
Yep. But then it's a matter of how do you kind of like roster updates, graphic updates, like how do you kind of build a new model? You're asking gamers to fundamentally reorder how they spend money, how they engage with that. And so like I agree, like, you know, Jamar says in the comments, like they're here to stay, and that's true, right? They're not going anywhere. There is no going back. No point in time will they say, actually, we're going to make all games $80 now and eliminate this. They're not going to do that.
No.
Because that hits the retail margins, it hits the retailers, and retailers themselves are having enough problems as it is, right? Trying to figure this out. Yeah,
no
sticker
doubt.
shock. I mean, sticker shock. I'm going to bring Canada back in. I'm sorry, but sorry. But at the core of that, what basically happens is like, so Canadian prices are always dictated by the strength of the Canadian dollar, and so for a period of time, it was relative parity. The Canadian and U.S. dollars are about the same. So games were $60 in Canada for a while. And then for a while, instead, they were 80. They were 90 in some cases because the exchange rate changed. In this case, it's 1.27. So you're looking at like an amount to kind of pull from that. But what that created was basically all these angry people, like, why are games getting more expensive? How are games so expensive now? What does this look like? You don't want that conversation. The last thing the games industry needs is that conversation. But you now end up in a situation where these predatory models come in that are not, I don't even think the games industry thinks they are predatory.
No.
Right? I don't think they see it through that lens.
Not even a little.
This is, I mean, this is at one point, I mean, look how far we've come since, like, was it Oblivion? And the outcry of over them
Horse armor.
trying to sell the horse armor.
I remember horse armor. Yeah.
Like, this is so far beyond horse armor.
Well, that's the thing, but that's an argument in favor of this policy from the game industry perspective, because we sure got used to DLC, didn't we?
Oh, of course.
Right?
They knew it. They knew we were
Sure.
gonna get
Like,
used to it.
that was something that was once like, well, why couldn't you put it on the disc? Why can't they be part of the game? Why are you expecting me to pay
Again.
more for more content?
Well, yes and no there, though, because on the PC side of things, they had expansion packs for years. You
An
know,
expansion
and
pack
so
is different from DLC, though.
Yes.
depending on the DLC, though, because like the
Correct.
Borderlands games have routinely brought out quality DLC at about a $10 to $15 price point.
Yeah.
Sure. And
That
there's a
gives you
ton of-
another 6 to 10 hours of gameplay.
There's a ton
entirely
of
worth
examples
paying
that we can
Yeah.
point to that.
Yeah.
That's a completely different point, I think. This is...
But I
Like,
think
yeah,
the
like
issue is that it's completely different on some level. I agree. This is not the same kind of process, and yet from the games industry perspective, it is the same process. It's just finding a new way to monetize content.
Sure.
I think they're underestimating. I think there's
No,
a little bit
I
of
don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
underestimation about what we're going to deal with. And I think the EA was they were cruising along, you know, looking at dollar signs for Friday's release, and this completely blindsided them. They had no idea that people were going to respond this way. I mean, it's clear by their spin and their damage control that they've been doing over the last 2 days that they weren't ready for this. And I'll just not to switch gears too much, but I don't know for you guys, but for me, I almost feel like I'm at my breaking point.
So
Yeah.
here's what I'll say. I don't really play any games that this applies to because I don't have time to play video games.
Yeah.
I just buy them and they sit there. That's basically my life in a lot of ways. I mean, I've been playing the Switch games because I think the Switch is new and it's easy. I can carry it around with me. Kind of fits into my life a little bit differently than other games. And like I'll buy a bunch of stuff on Black Friday I don't have time to play, and kind of like, you know, once again just sit it.
$40 deal. That's what I'm cruising for.
I just bought Uncharted Lost Legacy for $16 at Best Buy.
But
I love that series, and I know
Yeah.
I don't have time to
you
to
bring
get
up a
to it.
good point though with the Switch and and how it is in your life. and you guys mentioned the mobile games and stuff earlier. That's how we're going. I mean, the console thing, it's either going to be a super expensive, or you're going to do the Switch/mobile games where it's portable, maybe a little bit cheaper, and you can take it on the go with you.
The Switch isn't any cheaper than the other consoles.
I think they're like 40 or 50 for the games. I'm thinking just the games.
Some
I'm
of the
thinking
games.
for the games.
So like
yeah.
the main Nintendo stuff has been
Yeah.
60 in full, but there is certainly some cheaper titles that have been released, and I think you'll see some more of that as it moves forward.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think it's a different gaming style.
I think the question is then, like, the whole issue of the hybrid handheld mobile, right, handheld console until it's practical, is that they have a chance of connecting to that mobile audience that is increasingly a part of this. But here's the thing. The mobile audience is never going to become a console audience. The way gaming grew was through gaining entirely new types of gamers who are never going to sign on to that type of experience. Sure. And now what the industry is trying to grapple with is the economics of the industry are moving towards an audience who's never going to play AAA games. And yet you now have to convince the AAA audience that that's the model they should be working with as well.
Sure, but Nintendo's also been pretty smart in opening up the Switch to a lot of indie developers and being able to get those smaller experiences on there at a more budget-friendly price point, $30 to $40.
Well, no, I mean, like, you sort of look, like, I didn't get Golf Story, but I will at some point because I played those Mario sports games for the Game Boy Color to death.
Yeah.
And it's like, Stardew Valley, stuff like that. I've spent a fair amount of time on those types of games on the console, and I think Nintendo, with their mobile games, has sort of been testing the field with this. And, with Mario Run, which I did spend $10 on and felt like I got $10 worth of value out of, if I think of that in terms of the amount of time I spent. They just added new content to it. I don't know if you did the remix stuff at all.
No, sorry about that. No, I paid the $10 for it as well.
Yep.
And I got my $10 out of it, and then I kind of just deleted it.
Yep.
I was
I will
good
say,
with it.
if you were to download it again, there is a whole remix value. It's a little bit of like new setup. You can get a new character. I enjoyed it.
I've got enough Power Moons to collect at this point. I can't go running around on some phone. I've got the Switch and the hats, and apparently Cappy can kill you now.
I don't know.
There's a glitch.
I played a bit of that, but like Nintendo has played around with stuff. They, Pokemon Go is not exactly them, but the Fire Emblem game, the Animal Crossing game that they've had, like, they see that some of their franchises do fit well with these models, but they're also drawing a clear distinction between the mobile and the console and the handheld. And they're kind of exhibiting that distinction as we're not going to extend one to the other. We're going to connect these different universes together. And I think that's what ultimately EA really isn't in a position to do, because they're spending so much money making these games and need that to work to make that happen. But like, that to me is how you solve this. You have some games that are just built around this, right? That going in, this is the kind of game you're playing, this is the kind of game I want to play, this is what it looks like. But they also need to clearly bound out other experiences that aren't going to be that way, to give people a space where they can just spend money and play a video game.
Yeah. Well, and EA has a problem with the Switch anyway right now, because they tried to port over FIFA and they completely half-assed it. And people said, well, why would I pay full price for a broken game that's a broken port of a really good game?
Did they farm it out?
No, I think they kept it in-house. They just didn't do a very good job with it.
They basically, they in some ways, they couldn't actually port it because they can't port Frostbite. Which that's their engine, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
the one that Dice made.
Yeah.
That doesn't really port all that well, and so they can't really make that work. So they built like a separate engine. It's just kind of it's not. Really, the Switch was more successful than any of the third-party publishers expected.
Sure.
They've been behind on addressing it, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, Jamar says the games are expensive to make, and the other alternative is to make games more expensive for the consumer, and then we just have to get used to microtransactions. Games have always been. I mean, games have been increasingly more expensive to make.
I think it's a matter of two things.
Raise
One
the
is
price.
how it's presented, and the other thing is, if you raise the price, like, I think people are more likely to spend, look, say $10, right?
Sure.
Everybody spends an extra $10.
Go up to $64.99. Go up to $69.99.
I personally would be more comfortable with that on a level, rather than feeling like, because I don't have 40 hours to spend playing anything. Says the person who spent 55 hours playing Stardew Valley. Don't talk to me right now. But like
farming.
Yeah,
I did what, a good 12, 13 years of World of Warcraft with multiple accounts.
And so the point being here is that, like, the way we spend
50 hours
time,
was a week.
the way we engage with things, right? I think there's a choice that needs to be made. I think for me with microtransactions is this notion that if the game is like basically spending me like neon signs, like you need to do this, I'm going to push you towards that. If I feel like I'm being coerced into that process, then I start to feel offended. Then I start to feel like this. I feel like I'm being forced to play this game a different way. If it's just that I could basically pay to win faster, right? I'm content to, if I like the game enough, if the game is good, I'm content to grind it out if I have to, right? Like, there are some games where I feel like if it's a good enough game and I really enjoy playing it, right? Like, I remember, like, if it's a sports game, if the sports game's really good, the gameplay is strong, and I feel like I'm just going to play that much anyway, I'm not so concerned about the lack of progress or the lack of unlocking a character or a costume or something of that nature. Whereas, like, if the game is sort of already a slog, if you made, like, a mediocre game that's not doing much, then you're punishing me by making me play it.
Yeah. Like what was that, the Kurt Schilling game, Legends of Amalur.
God.
I've never fallen asleep so many times in a
That
game.
was...
Now, I think I'm running into a different thing. By the way, one of our super fans, Sarah, says, personally, she buys a lot of
Candy Crush
She
lives?
buys a lot of lives in Candy Crush. Wait, no, she says nothing. That's stupid. Who would do that?
These are good questions. John says they want to do cosmetic stuff. Fine. Other games have shown there's plenty of money to be made there. Core gameplay, and like the definition of core gameplay is sort of what's at
Right.
stake here.
I feel
right?
like everybody's fine with cosmetic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what John's talking about, both him and I, we were looking forward to Shadow of War. And Shadow of War's real ending is locked behind a 20 to 30 hour grind at the end game. Now, I
didn't know
don't
that.
have
That's too
that
bad, 'cause that's
time.
a
Developers
fantastic
are
game.
so bad at end games right now. It's a complete disaster. It's across
And
the board.
I put 50 hours into the first Shadow of Mordor title. I loved it. I dug everything out of that game possible.
Can I tell you something bad?
Paid for the DLCs.
You'll really like Shadow of War.
Damn.
Just saying. Fantastic.
No, well, I
That's the same
refuse to buy it at this point because
Right.
I don't want to. I don't want to be forced into having
Wait,
to
boss.
take.
I'll go one up. I'll go one up from that. I think I'm getting out of it. I can't point to any great experiences that I've had. And like I said, I mean, I was born in 77, so I grew up with the game industry. So like, when I look back at some of the things I remember that made me fall in love so much with the game industries, it's things like, having my grandfather lift me up so I can play like Carnival, and just falling in love with Pac-Man and searching arcades to find a baby Pac-Man machine, which is nowhere to be found. And, like the first time I went in and really saw Dragon's Lair up into there was, when the first Turtles game came out, I was supposed to be going away for vacation for a week at the beach. And
Someone say turtles. What?
and I on the Friday I was leaving, one of my friends came home with the game, and I didn't go on vacation so I could sit at his house and play that stupid game and get electrified trying to swim through the stupid dam.
So obviously the trip wasn't to Disney World then.
No, it wasn't. I would have gone. I mean,
But I guess the
trying to
question is,
put like RAM into my computer to play X-Wing. I mean, these are all like memories that real friends that I actually got in World of Warcraft. But at this point, I'm not getting those highs anymore. The industry that I followed so intently my entire life, I'm at a point now where it's nothing but getting yelled at in Overwatch. It's stuff like this and Gamergate and
you know how to fix that, Matt?
it doesn't feel good.
You know how to fix that?
How?
Buy a Switch and play Mario Odyssey.
I mean,
I'm dead serious. It has been the most fun I've had gaming in a while.
And picking up the Switch and playing just for a couple of minutes,
Yeah.
it felt good. But I haven't
I honestly
Call
think
of Duty. I was like, this is the
Duty.
same game I'm getting 10 years later. Do they just think we forgot that we played all of this before?
it's one of those cases where, like, for my purposes, like, I've always been a Nintendo gamer primarily. I've never really been in the first-person shooters or massively multiplayer online games. It's never been a part of my experience. And so for me, the Switch is more of the same. I tend to play single-player games, right, all the way through. And if I'm playing multiplayer game, it's like Splatoon and stuff that Nintendo does and moving through. So it's like, on the Switch, I played a bunch of Salmon Run, which is Splatoon's cooperative mode with a bunch of friends. We go over Discord, we do voice chat, we kind of play in the game and go through that. I've had a lot of great experiences doing that, kind of brought me together with them. So I found that experience, but like just popping online and playing a game has never been something I did. And so none of the games that I play are really going to be a fit for this model. I've never seen games as a service and never really treated them that way. And as a result of that, I have my own way into the game industry that I sort of connect with accordingly. So, but I can understand if you are that type of gamer, that it is going to become less and less comfortable for you to work in that system.
Sarah brings up an interesting point, actually. You know, if there were microtransactions when we were kids, and you know, the '80s for I'll average it out for this room, the '80s, and
I mostly played in the '80s.
I said I'm averaging it out across the four of us.
Yeah, like 89 for me would have been the start.
Yeah. Well, and I think Super Mario Brothers was my first game that I got. I guess that was late '88, when my sisters were born.
I didn't get my Atari 2600 until like 81, 82.
Okay, so as I said, the '80s. My numbers were right. Don't question my numbers, Matthew.
I just don't put me in the '70s.
I'm not putting you in the '70s. I said averaging out. We're just going to say
Space Invaders.
We're just going to say the '80s for the sake of argument's sake. You know, she brings up a good point with the fact that her parents wouldn't have paid for that. And maybe I
don't think any of our parents would pay for it.
And that's the thing. I think nowadays, though, the whole culture is, and I don't have kids, so maybe I'm incredibly wrong. I think parents are just like,
paying for it.
Then how are these kids getting the money?
Because I don't think they're getting the money.
I think some of them are. I think some of them are, and I think some of the parenting and the fact that
John brings up a good point. Unless, of course, the parents set up parental controls.
Maybe.
So, I mean, so like, there's all those stories about kids like going on iPad games and like spending $1,000.
And that's kind of what I'm alluding to a little bit.
There's parts of that. I think to some degree, I don't think that's all that common. I think what you have are kids who have access to their parents' credit cards and whose parents are rich and they just don't do things. Like anytime I see like someone like streamers on Twitch and like they keep getting like $10 donations from these people or $100 donations, and I'm like, that's some kid with parents who don't pay attention. They give him a credit card number and they just go, right?
Well, and that's kind of what I'm wondering. I mean,
and that's part of
the culture has changed in that sense.
I think 100% this is a system that is designed to take the people for whom money is not an object and who are willing to go into debt or like spend tens of thousands of dollars to bake these games.
Right.
They're looking to take advantage of the fact those people are out there. And everybody else, it's a matter of if you spend $5 once, great. Like that's a win. That's $5 more we would not have had as an additional piece of income. That's great. But there's no question that the sort of sense of charges that people rack up, there's just an expectation, I think, that's part of the cost. You know, kid would just say, look, I need this extra $10, you know, actually I can keep playing this game. I'm subscribed to this, or I need a PSN login, or I need something, right? Mm-hmm. And in some cases, people get that. If we didn't grow up that way, it makes no sense to us. It makes no sense to me. Well, I did not have that type of freedom in terms of how I spent.
I didn't
Sarah
either.
Brings up a good point. She says that she doubts that she'd be much of a gamer if she's a kid today because her parents might pay $60 to shut her up for a while.
Well, that brings up my point. Is that
it was like a big deal. Like
it was a Christmas present.
It was in the community with the other kids.
This is why I didn't get a lot of gaming as a kid. I went from a Nintendo and then had no Nintendo. I think I've mentioned this before. I got a Nintendo because my parents had my sisters, and they're like, all right, here's a cat, here's a Nintendo, just distract yourself for a little while. And then I didn't get another game system until PlayStation 1. So, I mean, that's 14, 15 years in between game systems. I played Super Nintendo and Sega at friends' houses. Yeah. So I missed out on a lot of those experiences because I didn't grow up in that kind of household where my parents were just like, oh, yeah, here you go, shut up, you know. Except for that one system. They couldn't do it regularly and consistently.
And I mean, I think the back and forth that Jamar and John are having in the comments is really interesting because I think, you know, Jamar's point, I don't think the developers are being malicious. And it's like, okay, you're right. I don't think they're literally trying to literally be vultures taking advantage of these people.
So they don't, nobody's Hitler except for Hitler, Matt.
But I do think that they're observing that there is now a culture of people, and I think John's point about being capitalist is part of it. They're noticing that mobile gaming has built an entire backbone that didn't exist a decade ago around the fact there are people out there willing to spend real money to play these games and to advance faster.
And think about who the people that are paying that money, the kids who grew up with gaming and now were the spenders.
And they're now seeing if those people exist, then the industry would have to serve them in order to maximize its potential revenue.
Yep.
The issue is, how do you serve them? How do you give them a space to do what they want to do while still retaining the gaming experience for other people?
Yeah.
That's the question that EA ran into. Their solution was, let's change the amount we're charging. Let's make it more reasonable. Let's limit the amount of time you have to play to access these heroes.
I've got.
Is that not a solution in a way?
Well,
Is that not
I'll
a
let Tra-
compromise?
and it might be. I'll let Travis make his point, but I've got something that ties into kind of retro gaming here in a sec.
So really, the one thing there though, they brought the cost of everything down, as far as it's not going to take 60,000 credits to get Luke or Vader.
It went from 40 to 10, 75%.
Yeah, it went from
That's
40
a lot.
to 10. That's a huge jump or cut.
Yeah.
But the problem is that they also cut the rewards that you get for doing anything in the campaign or in the arcade mode or any of the other stuff. So they're proportionately cutting down your rewards. So it's still going to take you a fair amount of time to grind that out. It's not on the up and up that they're going to just hand you some of this
The
stuff
answer
now.
to that is every gamer has to make the decision if they want to buy into that or not.
Sure.
You either get on that treadmill and run, or you don't. Keith.
Yeah. Last point I kind of want to make because we do need to wrap it
Yeah,
up
I
here
was gonna
soon.
say,
We're gonna
make your point, and then let's just do a
Do we-
final kind of thought.
Do we think this is why, or do you guys think this is why retro gaming is kind of making a comeback with some of the classic Nintendo, classic Super Nintendos that have been recently released? Some of the games themselves have been more retro-like. Do you think that might be?
I don't.
You
I
don't?
think it's
Okay.
because those games were fantastic games.
Well, yeah,
I think
They
what
were.
what
I'll
you're
agree.
dealing with there is that retro aesthetics are cheaper to make, right? It's less expensive to develop for some of those games.
Okay.
Appeal to different audiences. Something like a Stardew Valley, although it's very unique, made by one person, etc. The aesthetics, it's a much cheaper game to develop in that circumstance, and yet you can still charge $15 for it and move through. In terms of Nintendo consoles, though, I do think that there's the idea that people willingly spend $80 on that box with
Hi.
like. For ultimately, but you're getting all of these game experiences attached to it with no limits,
Some of the
no
best.
demos, some of those details, some of the
And
best.
some of the best games.
And I guess it's a matter of if you think about that in the context of the current generation, right? If
Right.
down the line somebody made a pocket PS4 that had those things, right? How many experiences would be
Well, that's when the PS18 is out.
Yeah.
So
how many comparable experiences could be such clearly bounded titles that don't have to exist as service and as something you have to be online for, something that's community based, those types of details? That type of gaming is going the way of the dinosaur a little bit because of these shifts, because of budgets, because of those details. So like looking at Star Wars Battlefront 2's campaign is part of why the game that used to be Star Wars 1313, their adventure Uncharted-like game, no longer exists. Because they needed the workers to work on the
Finish up the
game
team.
for the campaign. They stripped that team down and they lost all momentum. And so it's like, we're going to miss out on a sort of like definitive action adventure Star Wars game in part because in this circumstance they needed the service-based game to go forward. So it's the future, and it's not one of those cases where I feel like I'm complaining about something I'm never going to really engage in.
yeah.
Right? I don't play
Well,
these games and engage with them, so it's not going to be a huge deal. But it's definitely a shift in the culture that we're all going to have to adapt to.
I think, you guys kind of said it earlier when I was off to the side here. I still kind of am off camera right now. I think if it's worth the 10, the 50, the $150 for you, then it's all the value of what you put forth to it. I think that goes for more than just video games too. I think it goes for any of the collectibles you see in this room. If I'm willing to pay.
What collectibles?
Good point, Keith.
I don't see anything.
Good point.
It's all in the matter of the value you're going to put into it. If you're willing to shell out $150 for a game that if you think you got $150 out of it, then great, you've made your money.
Yep.
And
you know what? And I just want to leave people with this. No matter what, like, if you don't think that it's of good value to you, don't come down on anybody that does put in the money to do it. And that goes for vice versa. We have a really bad habit of gamers attacking gamers for no reason. There's really no right answer to this. It's just what it's what the market can either support or can't support. The market can't support it, then it's not going to continue. If there's no money in it, it's not going to continue. But there's absolutely no reason for us to go in and attack each other as gamers, because really what it comes down to is we all just want to get that great feeling and that great experience from playing games.
Yeah.
That was really inspiring, but I'm still going to be mad at rich people who are just sort of just like,
Oh, I
who
didn't
cares about
oh,
money?
yeah,
I'm just
no,
going to
no.
spend all this stuff. Like,
You're
if
being
somebody...
mad at rich people.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure there was a
No,
that was
yeah,
very
yeah.
inspiring.
No,
I
I
felt
mean,
very
like-
warm in my heart, but I still want to judge rich people. I just want to be very
I
clear
meant
on
like middle class
Thank
to,
you.
to lower middle class to lower
someone
class.
who decides where it's like, I'm not going to go out to dinner this week, and instead I'm going to spend $20 on credits so I can get Darth Vader sooner. I'm not going to
Don't
judge
be
that
mad
person.
at that guy.
Yeah, don't. Yeah.
Rich people, yes.
Now,
that guy,
to
no.
be fair, if they're spending $40 on Darth Vader and $40 on the Emperor and not able to pay their bills and falling behind on things, you might want to like help them out and actually, they might actually have a problem, as Travis mentioned earlier, with the guy he worked with, and you should try to give them some support.
Yeah, and with me saying that what Travis was saying wasn't quite the same thing, that's not to say what you said wasn't very valid and a completely, totally different issue. Sure. Don't go spending all of your money on loot boxes if you can't pay your bills.
Right. Adult responsibilities first. As much as they
Exactly.
suck, at least try to make sure your responsibilities are taken care of before you become an addict and have to get actual help.
And I mean, I think that's sort of the issue is like this, like Matthew notes, like they're counting on people becoming addicts. I don't know if they're necessarily counting on people becoming addicts. I think they are counting
Repetition.
on there being people who will use
Who'll
this
pay for it.
as
Yeah.
an ongoing, they'll just see it as being part of the price of gaming.
Right.
And it's not so much a matter of being addicted to it to the point of overuse. Just they see it as normal. Once they normalize this, we're no longer having this conversation.
Sure.
Well, we can still have this conversation. We'll still be angry about it, but we'll still be
Oh,
paying
we're
for
rich
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
And
we're rich
I
people,
will have
right?
spent $100 trying to get my my 80s
Cthulhu.
Zarya.
Does it make her look like Blondie? Is that
No. Puts her in 80s sweats. Fantastic. But the point is, I didn't get it. You know what? Didn't put much thought behind it. Oh, well.
Yeah.
I didn't get it in all the loot boxes that I had.
All right, boys. Well, I think that about wraps it up for us. Travis, thanks for joining us, man. As always, if anyone wants to, actually, where can they find you on social media? Do you have a
Share
Twitter or
your phone
anything,
number
or social?
Still setting everything up.
Okay, so Travis is still setting his social media up. In the meantime, though, you can actually here. I'm gonna try to lean in here, so I'm actually on
in.
camera.
Get in here.
Let's.
Come
I'm
here, Bobby.
I'm coming.
on,
I'm coming.
Keith,
I'm
let
doing
me-
some production
let me
here.
cra-
All
let me
right, there we
cradle
go. Nope. Am I still okay? There we go. All right, there we go. I'm a little
Where
bit
is
off
he
the
coming
side.
from?
Ooh, it's magic. But in the meantime, since Travis is still, oh jeez, okay, there we go. If you still want to catch up, I'm just sitting over here. If you guys want to catch up on Travis and what he's up to, go to popshow.com and read his articles he's been writing on there. I think Travis told me before the show he wrote a new one, so that'll be going up on our Facebook page, facebook.com/popshow.
It's a good article, too. It's why Matt's an idiot for loving Overwatch so much.
Did he just plagiarize my article that I wrote a year ago? Okay, just making sure. Three-part series, folks. Popshow.com. You guys can catch us on Twitter at Popshow. You can catch me, Keith, at VA Pianist on Twitter. I occasionally use it. Matt, where are you on the social media types?
You can find me popping out of loot boxes. Just make sure you keep buying them, or go find me at Have Issues.
All right, and Miles, thanks for guest hosting. And where
Yes,
can they
of
find
course.
you?
You can find me on Twitter at MEMLES.
Awesome. Well, let's see here. I think I've got. Nah, screw it. I'm not getting it fancy tonight.
Bye,
so,
guys.
thanks, thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Jamar, John, Matt, all you guys. We will see you all next Tuesday.
I feel like we need outro music.
Is it not? Oh, yo, sorry. You know what? That might help. Sorry, got a lot going on over here. So, buttons. I got to fix some technical issues. Sorry, guys. We will see you next Thursday. Later.
We'll see you on
Tuesday.
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 We'll see you on Tuesday.
See, now you've thrown me all off.
I will be popping out of a loot box on Thursday, though.
Okay. All right, guys. See you next Tuesday. Later.
I feel like we need to make a big loot box.